stops, no one knows. We're going headed into the unknown. Na, 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 na.
Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday, and welcome back to Criminality. If this is your first time here, welcome to Criminality. So I see a lot of comments about today's testimony in chat. So we, not to get too far ahead of myself, but we got to start back with Friday. Friday? Shit. Thursday? Friday? Shit. What day was it? No, day 17 of the trial, because today's day 18. Today is the only day this entire week that there will be testimony heard in the Karen Reed case. They have a very wonky schedule. Next week, they're there for a full day Monday, gone Tuesday, back for a full day Wednesday, half a day Thursday, and then no court Friday. Like, it's like, I come on, that's ridiculous. How does anybody keep track of this? So today was definitely the beginning of what I would say is the Commonwealth actually starting their case versus the defense of the McAlberts, because so far that's all the trial has been, is the Commonwealth in defense of the McAlberts. And now we're actually going to start seeing the evidence that they have against Karen Reed. Now, anybody who doesn't watch trials, that part can get very monotonous. It can get very boring. There's a lot of credentials that end up getting read, and where people went to school and where they graduated and where they lived and all the things they've done, and that can be it can be monotonous. So just hang tight, because there's still, this isn't over. They have it scheduled for 7 weeks with the potential to go 8 weeks, and that included jury selection. This is technically week 5, and it's already over. So I don't really know how they're going to end up really putting that together. So Lolly had said in one of the pretrial hearings that he needed about 4 weeks for his case. Well, technically that would be done, but he's just starting his case. And then the defense said they needed about 2 weeks to present their defense. So I don't know. I don't know how that's going to go, but let's say hi to everybody, and then we'll get started on recapping, starting with Mr. Higgins and all the things that he testified to. He was not nearly as spicy as I thought it was going to be, but I guess I should have known better, since, he is a cop, and this isn't his first rodeo. He's testified many, many, many times, but there was still some interesting tidbits that came out. Is my name still just... Shit, it is. That's so fucking funny. I'm still... Watch, hold on. I bet my picture still is, too. It is! All right. Hold on. Let's get fixed. We are not Delphi. We are not Delphi today. Hopefully we can do that tomorrow. I need to get in touch with Sleuthy and see if she's available tomorrow to do the other one. It's a short one. The other read-through of the May 7th. Let's see. I'm like, what is my name? I don't even know what's my name. Say my name. Say my name. All right, we got that fixed, and then let's go fix this. All right. I think we're back. I think we're back to normal. We're back to normal. Okay. Now when I turn my cam off, I won't scare the shit out of everybody, and they're like, where the hell am I? Well, it wouldn't be an actual Judge Gold feed, because she won't share anything from her courtroom. Thanks, Spicy, for helping me out there. I didn't even notice it. Didn't even think about it. Higgins is a liar. Bob said last night the CW is using pre-buttal defense. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting what they've done. And I'm curious what they're going to do with Proctor. I'm pretty curious about that. Where was Jackson today? So he's actually on vacation. He had said at the end of the day last week that if you guys remember, if you're watching like the whole thing, at the end of one of the days, I think it was Fridays, they had Karen Reed go up like during the sidebar. Well, she had to sign a waiver like saying that she was aware that Jackson was not going to be there today and that Yannetti was going to be taken over the cross. And if you remember prior to that, she had said there was multiple reasons that she wanted to finish Higgins' testimony by the end of Friday. Ironically, I mean, another hour and they would have been done. I mean, they kind of busted it all out this morning, but it was probably good to kind of leave everything going on with Brian Higgins in the forefront of the jury for the entire weekend. But I mean, she doesn't want to ever like mess with the schedules. She like gets all like, okay, I want you guys to stay a half hour later. When I had jury duty, they didn't care. They were like, okay, you're done early or you're staying here late. There was no like, can you or can you not? So Jackson is actually on vacation, and he's actually from California. So him and his family were on vacation, and so he was not planning on being there. And he was hoping to obviously have Higgins cross done on Friday afternoon, which didn't work out. So they finished it up this morning super quick. And so what I was going to say before I start going into saying hi to everybody as you guys pop in. So one of the things I wanted to do why we don't have trial. So tomorrow, kind of messing with my schedule here. Let me see. Tomorrow I wanted to do the other Delphi motion, or the other Delphi hearing, but that shouldn't take super long. So one day I plan on going back over all the opening statements, like all of them. There's 2, but going back over those and just seeing like where we're at now versus what we heard then. I also have the edited version of Jen McCabe's testimony that I'm hoping to be able to do these, and these would be hoping to do these through like with an open panel, so anybody who wants to join can just join and we can just talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about. I edited Brian Alberts and Colin Alberts, Chris and Julie's I put together, so I have like just some different ones, but I went through and edited out all the sidebars and the lollygagging around, like as they sit there and read through like the documents for 5 minutes. I took all that crap out so that we could just go through it. We can skip Lolly's opening. We'll concede he's proven nothing yet. No, I think we should just go back through it and kind of see like, okay, what have we seen so far that they said we were going to see, and what are we still waiting to see? That's kind of where I'm at with it. I was going to do Higgins, but ultimately I think there's only like a couple major points of Higgins' testimony that actually mattered. I think that Alan Jackson was really trying to get him to do, like, to get Higgins to a certain point where he would say things that he was looking for him to say. Yeah, he's lollygagging. Andy. He's and Higgins wasn't gonna let him take him there. We've thought about that since one of the pretrial hearings. Bev actually asks Yannetti, like, well, what are you guys going to do if the Commonwealth doesn't call Proctor? And I was like, that was an interesting comment. Like, did she know that they don't plan on calling Proctor? There is another trial, and I don't know why in my head I have it stuck as Letitia Stokes, but I could be very wrong. But they didn't call the lead investigator, and I remember it being like, wait a minute, they're not calling the lead investigator. So now this isn't like as big of a shot because it's not the first time. But all right, let me say hi to you guys, and then we'll get on with the starting with Higgins. So what's up, Marshall? Proctor is under an internal affairs investigation. Well, the defense's response during the pretrial hearing, well, it doesn't matter if they call him or not because we're going to call him. So either way, it would make no sense to me for the state to not call him, knowing that the defense is going to call him. Because, I mean, there's no, the jury's heard so much about Proctor at this point. If the Commonwealth decides to not call him and then he ends up there on the defense side, I cannot see that coming across to a juror in a positive way. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. He may plead the fifth. He absolutely might, but and the jury will be instructed that he has every right to plead the fifth and so on and so forth. But I think we all know if you get somebody on the stand who's pleading the fifth, that's problematic. That's problematic. That's why I think it would be more beneficial if the Commonwealth, and this is just my personal opinion, but if the Commonwealth called him, see, this is a struggle I have because they've done all this, like this pre-buttal, as we've been referring to it, but they're not actually like addressing a lot of the issues, and then they let the defense come up there and just hammer away at their witnesses. The point of putting all these people on beforehand is so that they can address it and address it the way that they want the jurors to see it, versus the defense having the first opportunity to present that to the jury. Does that make sense? It's kind of like to sugarcoat it. I mean, it's like here's the soft landing versus the hard landing that the defense would have if they bring on these people instead. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm curious about the Emmy. And like I said, my biggest ones is going to be the medical examiner on both sides, because they also have an expert that's coming in for the defense, and the accident reconstruction people, along with any of the tech people that are going to go through like the Celebrate. That's going to be the make it or break it of the case, in my opinion. That's going to be where the jury is going to probably put most of their, if they understand them. Because in my experience, anytime an expert gets on the stand, if they're not likable or they're not relatable or understandable, like the jury just can't comprehend the shit that they're talking, no matter how right they are, the jury just won't listen anymore. To be an expert that the jury actually pays attention to, you have to do things sometimes like more in layman's terms. Like you could kind of see almost Geek Squad coming up today. Like they were inching towards it. So you had, once again, here's me skipping ahead, but you had the Roberts guy who comes up there, Roberts, what the hell was his name? Nicholas. He comes up there, he's relatable. So what he's saying, people will pay more attention to. And then you have the other guy, I don't even remember his name at all. Hold on, let me go look at it. Nicholas Roberts was the one that I think what people were, and these aren't experts, so I'm not saying like, but I'm just giving you like kind of an example of what we've seen so far. The pathologist, Gary Fowler, yeah, him. He is the epitome of you don't want as an expert witness. He will get bored. I mean, he will bore people. People will not pay attention to what he's saying. He's using words people don't understand, and they just won't listen to him. So you need somebody who's got some charisma and can explain things in a way that, that like a regular person is going to understand it, not somebody who spent their life in a lab or behind a microscope. Yeah, he was pretty bad. And I felt bad for him because, I mean, he seemed like a nice guy. And he's just not a good witness, but it's obviously not something he's done a lot. He's the medical version of Lolly. Trooper Bukaki. She's like, I seriously don't know his real name anymore. Oh, hey, there's Luthi. I thought Fowler was way better than Rice, but Roberts was the best so far. Right, because he was chill. He was like, this is just, I do this because I like it, and here's just the info I got. And he was just a relatable fella. All right, hold on. So, let me see. Where did the ER doctor get the info about J.O. possibly being hit by a car when he was forced to read his notes and never said that? I know. Well, you're talking, 2 years later. I think that there's probably been many conversations that these people have had. Most of them have had to testify at the grand jury to indict her on the second-degree murder charge. And then a lot of them have also had to testify again at the federal grand jury that took place last year. I can see how some of these people are like, honestly, I don't have any fucking idea where I heard that. Like, I don't know. Somebody told me it at some point. Like the superintendent today, I've been here since the intro, ma'am. Sorry. I was busy chatting to myself. So, all right. Let me scroll back up. I'm going to say hi to everybody. Then maybe I'll actually know who's here and who isn't. So what's up, Lady Claymore? Hi, Nancy. Hey, Missy's Angels. Hi, Ashley. Hi, Susan. What's up, Observer? This is Rittenhouse Trial 2.0 and Lolly's Thomas Binger. And we all know how that turned out for the prosecutor. That is not good. Honestly, I think Bev is a better judge, though. It's just my opinion. Everything the McAlberts have done and their lying looks so bad anyway. Yeah. Yeah, the pathologist. The ER doctor was strange today, too. Yes. And they just put his CV in last week. He was the one that was on the list where they were just turning over evidence, that Lolly was just turning over evidence. Never brings it out first, except those texts with Higgins, but that didn't help him as well as he'd like. He just doesn't have a lot of delivery. But I always think, too, there might be people who just are looking at the defense attorneys like you're showboating, like you're just out here just showboating, and they might like the calmer, more consistency of a Lolly. Maybe people like that. I'm not somebody who does. It would bore me as a juror, but I'm sure there are people who are like, oh yeah, this is much more peaceful. I can listen. I don't feel like, unnerved. Hi, Tia. All right, let me see. Hey, Dante, you mean if you get the lead investigator to plead the fifth, you got a problem? I'd say so. Hi, Bob. I know I was talking to you earlier. I don't think I actually said hi to you, though. Hi, Teresa. The CDW tried to cast doubt on the Plow driver being able to see the yard at 34 Fairview. It didn't work. No. I'm also curious if they're going to call him. But he is on both witness lists, so I'm wondering who's going to call him. Or if the Commonwealth is just going to leave the whole Plow thing to whatever Trotta said. Hey, Christy. Everything I've learned about this case, I've learned from T. True story. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully I've given you all the details. I think I've tried to cover like every freaking detail of this case since we did the whole 8-hour intro. Hi, Lynn. Defense can call Proctor, but he'll plead. Oh, wait, I think I already read that one too. How can you prove a case without calling main investigator? They'll get all the items in through other people. So you don't need the investigator if you can get the evidence that you want in. So say Proctor's the one who does the tow, right? Like he tows the car in, for instance. Well, we all know that he's towed the car in. So they're going to have the car in is going to be part of evidence. They're going to have the taillight pieces as part of evidence. So they don't necessarily need him, because what they're going to do is use anybody who was also there when it happened, or who also worked on the car, or who all, you know what I mean, or who signed the paperwork, and they can bring that kind of stuff. And that's just like a lame example. I mean, there's so many pieces like that. What's up, Inspector Gadget? So I would be interested if they're not going to call Proctor, though. But she made that comment, and I thought that would be silly. And now after he's done this pre-buttal, I think it would be really silly. His name's come up too much. His name has come up too much to just not bring him on the stand and address it. Saying like, hey, how well do you know this family? And he's like, I know the one and his wife, and that's really what I know. The case is moving so slow it'll run through the 4th of July. The problem is all these damn days off and these half days and everything else. It's ridiculous. They're taking too much time that they don't need to take off. I mean, I guess maybe she's got a full docket or something. I don't know. I don't get it. What's up, Dina? Hey, hello, Spring. I just got power back on after a big storm this afternoon. Are you Midwest? I know, was it yesterday? They were having, it wasn't yesterday, maybe it was the day before. My days are off. I'm like exhausted from the last couple of days of life. And so like I'm like, I don't even know what time it is. I'm lucky I knew what day it was. Hey, unindicted, visions of the second Liston versus Clay Ali fight. All right. Hi, Giselle. What's up, Chelsea? I have secondhand embarrassment for Higgins. I know. That guy ain't got no game. The guy ain't got no game. Hi, Punksy. What's up, PCM? Hey, Gabriella. I don't understand why the CW called the guy about the Plow schedule. If they are going to try to not call Lucky, who was the actual Plow driver, so they could get all this into evidence. That's kind of the same circumstance I was talking about with Proctor's. They can get all that into evidence without having to actually call Lucky up there to testify, whether what he saw and what he didn't see. So they just have like, hey, yeah, this is the schedule. These are the people we use, and this is what it is. It's ironic because I like literally just watched Turtle Boy's interview with Michael Trotta not that long ago. He did that. Yeah, that's essentially what we're getting to, Susan, is that supposedly when Proctor called in to find out who plowed, whether there was some confusion or not, but the GPSs on the trucks were apparently down at the time. And according to the superintendent, he says that they have like the city people who are assigned to each route, but they also assign like private companies to each route as well, so that there's two plows going through each road for these times that they're having the streets plowed whenever they decide it is. So I think that like there was like this whole thing where he was saying like, well, we didn't plow it that night, like the city didn't plow it, but then maybe in turn, but Lucky works though with the city, so maybe he's like, we didn't contract it out. I don't know how they're gonna do it. Lab scandal. Hold on, let me go to my live feed so I can grab those links. Okay, let me see what you got. Come on, computer, don't be silly. Just do what you're supposed to do. There we go. Why it's acting up. Hi, ATS. All right, let me go back over here. He's on both. So we can pull that up too, but let me take a look at this. Let's take a look at this scandal. Okay, the Massachusetts High Court disbars top prosecutor in a drug lab scandal. Massachusetts top court on Thursday disbarred former state prosecutor Ann Kaczmarek for violating thousands of criminal defendants' due process rights by failing to disclose key evidence related to a government chemist who stole drugs from a state crime lab. Kaczmarek led the prosecution of Sonia Farrick, a former chemist at the Massachusetts State Crime Laboratory in Amherst, who pleaded guilty in 2014 to charges that she stole drug evidence and worked in the lab while intoxicated. Nice. The revelation of Farrick's misconduct led the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court later dismissing thousands of drug charges. But the state waited for more than a year before disclosing documents in 2014 that detailed the extent of Farrick's drug addiction struggles, as well as her failed efforts to resist using drugs at work. The documents supported a strong inference that Farrick's misconduct began before 2012. During that time, many criminal defendants were found guilty, admitted to sufficient facts, or pleaded guilty because of the AGO's failure to turn over exculpatory evidence. The High Court also suspended another Assistant Attorney General, Chris Foster, and issued a public reprimand to their supervisor, John Verner. Foster was reckless in her representations about what her office disclosed and otherwise exhibited incompetence when responding to discovery and subpoena, the court found. Verner relied on Kaczmarek's misrepresentations in good faith, but failed to follow up. The harm that resulted from the combined misconduct of Verner, Foster, and Kaczmarek cannot be overstated. Lawyers for Kazmarek and Foster did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Attorneys for Werner, Patrick Hanley, Thomas Butters of Boston-based Butters Brazilian LLP said in a statement that they are pleased the court agreed with John's position that a public reprimand was appropriate. The High Court's dismissal of thousands of cases tied to Ferret came 1 year after the court dismissed around 21,000 cases due to a scandal involving a different state chemist, Annie Ducan, who admitted faking tests. Jesus. Okay. All right. This Massachusetts crime lab is going to be very problematic. And remember, we have the Massachusetts crime lab is who's taken the swabs of John's shirt, right? Or supposed to have been. Okay. Hold on. Is this the same one or is this different? Oh, this is different. Okay, hold on. A decade-old scandal at a Massachusetts crime lab which led authorities to dismiss tens of thousands of drugs convictions may involve wrongdoing by more people than was previously known, according to a recent court order. A state superior judge said in a ruling related to the release of a trove of state investigative materials that there is evidence that other employees in the William A. Hinton State Laboratory Institute, beyond disgraced former chemist Annie Ducan, may have engaged in the misconduct. Okay, because that's the ferric. So this is, I think, and they did the tail light. As they're in there taking stuff to make drugs on their own. And then you have the assistant state's the state's attorney general, the assistant state's attorney general not disclosing discovery items in a timely manner. It's called How to Fix a Drug Scandal or something. Is that the documentary, Carrie? And thank you for the super chat. Hold on. I was reading, so I didn't even look. Netflix did a doc about that case. There was a whole documentary on her and another lab analyst. Holy shit. All right, let me think. Oh, you're outside of Houston, Spring? Hello, Spring? Okay, well, just be safe. That's crazy. It's too attenuated. Probably won't have anything to do with the Reed's case. Well, what about the fact that they've already started to put out there that the lab techs were not passing their proficiency exams. In particular, the one lab tech that was swabbing the sleeve of John's shirt before sending it to the animal DNA place. Remember? Yeah, but I don't remember her name. Did I? Maybe I wrote it down. All right, hold on. Let me go see. Maybe I wrote it down. Who was on the stand? It was the dog lady, right? All right, hold on. What day did she testify? It was like random, like when Colin was there, I think. I went way too far. Nope, it's further than this. Who was testifying that day? Check day 12. Okay, let me see. Oh, yeah, it was. It was Maureen Hartnett. She's the one who failed her proficiency. Maureen. And yeah, he's like, you do realize that she's like failed. Yeah, Hartman. Oh, I put Hartman. It's Hartnett. Oh, well, whatever. Okay. Yeah, they didn't like that. So, all right. So before we get into this, then we'll take a peek at the. Oh, I guess I should mark that one off. take a peek at who's left. Some of these people, they're not going to be calling because you can already tell that they're completely out of order. So here's your police officers. They still have, there's obviously Proctor and Buchnick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There's 15 Massachusetts State Police. I'd be surprised that they call all of them, but you never know. There's also Needham Police Department and Dighton Police Department. So that's still 17 total police officers that they have on the list. We have the medical examiner and the medical examiners, both of them that were in charge of it. But this is Irini Scorti Bello is the chief medical examiner that will most likely be the one testifying. Yeah, he'll just call them all. Obviously, there's one from the Canton Fire Department. I don't see the purpose of calling him at this point. I think that when we get back in session next week, I think you're going to see Ian will probably take the stand soon. He's the Celebrate guy. I don't know. Here's the registered nurse and the nurse practitioner from Good Samaritan. They're going to call them. They're going to call them out of order because they already called the other two from there. There's the guy from the Nicholas Bradford from Technology and Test Chart, also from the Bode Technology. Gretchen Voss is the journalist that they want all the unedited, unaired stuff from Karen Reed's interviews. They called him. Mark him off. Then you got here's your state crime lab. Here's Maureen Hartnett. Here she is. I don't know if they'll call her. We'll see. The not a hair. So they got state crime lab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know if they're going to call Brian Loughran or any more friends. I'd be surprised. They still don't have anybody on here. And that's the other thing is they have to get the receipts from CF McCarthy's are still not in. And how many drinks that Karen Reed had that night, are they going to still push for that? Because now they have this BAC that they got today and, the extrapolation that they are counting on being valid. So are they going to even care to bring in how many drinks she had? Because if they were, we kind of thought since they didn't do it when they did the waterfall ones, that they were going to do it via either Proctor or Buchnick. But another thing that kind of supports that the Commonwealth might not call Proctor is on every circumstance where Proctor does an interview, Lolly has been asking, was there another trooper with him? Then that's how they would get that same evidence in that Proctor would bring in. So if Proctor interviews Carrie Roberts, but he's interviewing him with Buchnick, then Buchnick can talk about the interview with Carrie Roberts. If Proctor and Buchnick are the ones who go to CF McCarthy's to get the receipts, then they don't need both of them to validate that they got the receipts, even though Lolly seems to like to have repetitive witnesses. They don't need them. They can just get the receipts in through Buchnick and not Proctor. So I think I wondered that when he was doing that too. 76, 70, maybe he got it down to 76. Here he's got 87. He's got 87. And then I do have another list that has all the ones that are they have them the same. How many people are called that are the same. So I kind of just have been a little bit marking them off because I think that they probably, some of these people they're not going to call. But some they might. Let me see who else there was. And they've got some other troopers on here. Yeah. They also have John O'Keefe Sr. on their witness list. And the state did not. Hey, Coat, what's up? Hi, KO. Let me see. Hey, T, was John wearing heavy clothing that night? If so, I do not think he was wearing anything thick and heavy when those arm wounds were made. What do you think? He was wearing a pair of jeans and a long sleeve t-shirt style that had a hoodie. So it wasn't like an actual hoodie, but it was long sleeved with a hood. That was it. He didn't have a jacket or anything on. He had on black Nike tennis shoes. So he was not dressed for a snowstorm coming up at all. From my understanding, and we'll get more of this when they actually testify, Missy's Angels, the Celebrite extraction, the first one that was taken by the Commonwealth, was a regular, Celebrite extraction. And then when the defense did their own extraction, they used a more updated version of Celebrite, apparently. And like I said, we'll get more clarification when they start testifying. But so that the more updated or newer version of Celebrite was able to pull the 227 search. Give me 1 second, you guys. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. My middle child. So yeah, so they put it at we'll get. I guess I should just skip over to it. They put it at 93, but essentially they're putting her at let me go up so I can just tell you. Hey, oh, I didn't put it. I'm like, hey, where's that picture? I'm like, oh, I didn't put one there. So they put her at somewhere between 0.078 to 0.083 at 9:08 in the morning. And then they extrapolate it going back to her last drink being, according to him, at 12:45, saying that her low end would be 0.135 and her high would be a 0.292. So essentially they're saying that her BAC at 9:08 in the morning was between 0.078 and 0.083 through the hospital lab, which is part of the issues that people are having, is that how they test for that is different. But we'll get, okay, I'm gonna go back because I want to make sure we don't miss all the things. Yeah, that's the high end DB. Yeah, she'd be fucking dead, or she'd be definitely in the hospital. But I think that the defense did a good job of pointing out that there's no proof of when her last drink was. They used to say that, like, when people would get DUIs, that's what they would do. They'd take a drink of alcohol after they get pulled over. Go take a drink of alcohol, and then any type of test that they do on you is invalid because you just took a drink. They won't be able to figure out how impaired you were when you were actually driving. I know, right, Kelt? Okay, so let's go back. We're gonna go back in time. We're gonna go back to the start of Higgins, who on direct examination was extremely boring. And I was like, if this is a precursor to what's to come, this is going to be problematic, in my opinion. Then I was like, okay, I had to bring myself back to Jen McCabe, who was really boring on direct and then was really super spicy on cross. The biggest thing is for direct, so I'll just go over the basic testimony, but the biggest thing that comes out here is about these text messages. So I brought that clip up to play. They're just so pathetic. I mean, it's just such a pathetic attempt at anything. This is definitely not an affair. This is not a long going romance. This isn't there's nothing to this, in my opinion. I don't know if a jury's gonna see it being important. Let's, we'll do some polls. Let's do a poll on that. Is It is. It's the most boring flirtation ever. I'm like, and I get it. Like, it's been a while since I've been like in the flirting game, I guess. But I'm like, come on, dude. Like, you can't be serious. Like, this is really bad.
Hey, Brian, it's Weed Whacker.
Just first of all, can you guys hear it before I keep going? I just want to make sure you guys can hear it. The hospital drew her blood at 9:08 a.m. Aaron says, I speculate that John could have been investigating the local corruption using his girlfriend as a honey trap for the most obvious target. Oh, that would be, you guys are good. Okay. All right. And not that you guys haven't heard these before, but just so that we can all be on the same page with what we're hearing.
And how did you respond to that?
Question mark. How did you get my digits? Defendant responded, the Melissa and Lito show. I said, haha. I thought you creeped John's phone. I said, haha, again. Defendant responded, no way. I was.
And what's with all the weird ha-has? I hope Jay isn't here. Jay can't handle this one either. It's just so bad. It's so bad. What is, like, he's like, how'd you get my digits? Ha-ha. What does that even? I thought you creeped John's phone. Ha-ha. It makes me embarrassed forever, like, typing ha-ha. I'm like, I can't ever use it. I have ha-ha bros throwing out ha-ha sandwiches. It's so awkward. It really is. All right, hold on. I can't
was
even
the
make it
last
through
person
one.
in Greater Canton who didn't have your number. I think even Kerry has it.
He doesn't even have.
I responded, what, with a bunch of question marks. I said, I just don't give my personal number out to anyone.
Okay, hold on. This, haha written like that has to be like saved in his most frequently used things that he types. So he probably just has to put like the H, and then he just has to click the button, and it says like ha ha. Oh, were they reading them last night? Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. I missed that. I'd love to see Allie's reaction to this. She's gonna be like, oh my God, what is wrong with this guy?
How would Kerry have my number with a bunch of question mark? And the defendant responded, Melissa had it. So there's a photograph of somebody with a weed whacker. The defendant said, no, you're not a creep. I said, nope. She said, you're kind of a loner, which I used to be.
That was a typo.
I responded, no, not really. I have a ton of buddies, but I only let a handful of friends in that I'm tight with. So you think you got me figured?
Do guys even talk like this? Like, I only have a ton, I have a ton of buddies, but like, I only let like a certain like handful of friends like in. Like, do guys say that?
Get out, and then I typed circle of trust in quotes. So the defendant's
ironic that the whole circle of trust thing comes back up in these text messages. You've got what's her name? Was it Nicole? Was it Nicole or was it Jen? I think it's Jen, who's talking about like you got to be in the circle. You got to be in the circle. Yeah, it was Jen for sure. Many states won't allow extrapolation past 2 hours, some 4 hours. I have won probably a dozen cases when they tried to extrapolate past 8 hours. Interesting. So he does testify, Travis, saying that they have like this 2 hour window, essentially. I don't know what that means, but you probably know way more than I do. Yeah, no, they don't talk like that. Maybe a guy who's 16, but not a 40-something-year-old. I've seen some of my female friends' DMs. It's all bad. A normal one. It's like I just let a handful of my guys in, like in the circle of trust. You feel sorry for Higgins. Interesting, Lacey Lace. No, I mean, you're not crazy. I understand it because I walked away from his testimony like this guy is more of a chump. He's not the brains behind a cover up. I'll say that. Now, could he be the fighter in the cover up? Maybe. I don't know about that. I'm not quite there with the whole buying into that defense theory, but he's definitely not the brains behind the cover up. DB, I feel sorry for him if he's uninvolved. True. I mean, this would be absolutely embarrassing that he thinks that this is how you flirt, and he's probably like, this is why I'm single. I think the kiss is important if there was a confrontation between the guys, not as it being a fight that gave KR motive. Like I said, maybe I should have clarified that. Good point. Good point, Tori. Good point. Well, I think that they're trying to prove that Karen has this temper and she just flies off the handle. And so in her intoxicated state that night, they got in some argument about whatever, and she got pissed and backed into him going 24.2 miles an hour. All bets are off for me when he texts John with 3 question marks. Okay, and I do have a question at the end of this. At the end of this, were you under the impression that he actually gave his text messages with John over? Because going into this trial, I was under the assumption he gave that when he went and pulled this phone data, that he gives Karen's and John's correspondence between him and those two over. After listening to the testimony, I think he only gave over Karen's and said, I do have some with John too. But I don't think he actually handed that one over. All right, here we go.
Said, yeah, I said loner, not loser. I assume you know a lot of people, PPL, people abbreviated. You never really can figure anyone out completely. Your dad died when you were young, and I responded, he died in March of 2020. I'm so not a loser. You won't figure me out. LOL. Defendant responded, no one is a loser. I just didn't mean loner to imply friendless. I'm sorry that's recent. It wasn't COVID, was it? I responded, cancer. Defendant responded, I know you date girls who don't lock the house behind them, and you are private and observant. I'm sorry, what kind? I responded, lung, brain, kidney, and pelvis. How do you know all these things? LOL.
And so this went on for quite a while, but the text messages.
All right. The text messages are pretty embarrassing. So she does end up going. So he comes over to John's where they're having this football party thing, and she tells him to like leave out this particular door where there's no ring camera so she can give him a kiss. He says it was like more than, like it had to be like a more than friends kiss. They essentially say it's like a peck, and he's referring to it as a peck. So I mean, I don't know if it's like old school like movie romantic kissing where like people don't use tongue, because I don't know, like is it like just or like a super long peck and that makes it romantic? I didn't really understand that. I was like, how do you, if it's a peck, it's a peck. A peck is like, that's the point of it. It's short. It's like, you're done. That's, you walk away. So I don't know. I was kind of confused by that. And where he was going with it. And then for me, she ends up going over to his place and nothing happens. Like she leaves and he like talks about how it was kind of like awkward and she ends up leaving. I'm thinking right there. And then like she showed up to your house and nothing happens. You should be pretty much in the know that there's nothing happening between the two of you. There's nothing going further than whatever that peck is like You know, you guys are like laughing at me, but you know what I'm saying. It's like, it's weird. Let me see. Sherry says he went on and on about being friends with John, how he felt bad for not taking up for previous invites, but Higgins testified he ended up at the end of the game. Right. He doesn't even go until later. Higgins texted John if they were going to the Alberts. Wonder if there was an argument. By the way, Jo and KR on the way there. Jo went inside, confronted Higgins, got jumped, and that's why Jo was never messaged KR back. That's interesting. She doesn't get back in touch again and doesn't say she got home okay either. Right. She doesn't. He's like, I just told her, like, let me know you got home okay. And she's like, yeah, no, fuck that. I'm not doing that either. I'm not comfortable with that. LFT, leave me alone about my explaining that peck. My theory is he couldn't get it up, and that's why it was so at one point, I'm going to learn to pre-read these before I highlight them. He did. He had hope. But she wasn't. Like, they were right. She was ghosting him. Yeah, and the last thing is that she messages him that John died, and he doesn't respond to her. Why wouldn't he respond? I was talking with ATS about this, too. I'm like, why wouldn't he respond? Like, not a, I've heard, not a, I'm so sorry, not a, I hope you're okay, not a, you know, do they know what happened yet? Nothing. John's friend and John's girlfriend is texting you and saying that John's dead, and you just blatantly don't even respond. So I think it's an interesting lack of response. Like, he was busy. He had no problem talking to Kevin on the phone. He had no problem talking to Brian Albert on the phone. He had no problem talking to Berkowitz on the phone, but he didn't want to talk to her. Why didn't he want to talk to her? He should have responded anything. I mean, by the time she's texting him that he had passed away, that he already knew. He'd already been at the Alberts. He was already back at Canton Police Department. I don't know. It's weird. Nada. Nothing. Speaks everything to me. I hear you, Mel Mac. All right, let me take this down and we'll go back over. And now I lost you guys again. Higgins knew at 7 and did contact her? When did he contact her? Did he try to call her? Maybe I missed that. They'd already had the circle meeting. No, I know, C-Dub, but it just took me back after I read it. I don't remember him saying that, but Susan, let me know where you're getting that. Hey, BR. Oh, didn't contact her. Yes, he knew at 7 and didn't contact her. Okay. This high maintenance group of mean girls. If he really thought she had done it, he would have opened up the convo to get details to use against her. I just think he would have said anything. Like, he can't sit there and act like that he was John's friend and he's not even going to say anything to the girlfriend. It goes to the whole, like, Brian Albert not coming out of the house. Like, why are they're spending their entire time texting each other, talking to each other, trying to, quote unquote, trying to figure out what happened, right? That's what they all testify to. We were trying to figure out what happened. We were in shock. We were just trying to figure out what happened to our friend, our friend that we loved. But then nobody wants to talk to that person to find out what happened. Nobody wants to talk to her. I find that interesting. Yeah, we want to know what happened, but we're not going to talk to the person that we are suggesting said, that she had hit him. All right, let me see what else there is. Okay, they talk about, so he drinks Jameson and ginger ale. That's a big thing. We know we got to know what everybody drinks in Canton. So he drinks Jameson and ginger ale. I still find it really weird that he goes and drops off Kevin at the police department. So first he drops off Brian Albert. This is the night of the 28th. He drops off Brian Albert where Brian Albert's Ford Edge is, and he goes to Canton Police Department where he switches vehicles and drops off Kevin Albert. Why doesn't he switch to the vehicles then? I don't get that either. If he knew, they all knew the storm was coming. This wasn't a surprise. It had been on the news. They were preparing for it. So I don't know why he doesn't switch the vehicles then. But he says, I was hungry and I just wanted to go. So he goes, but this was my problem with Brian Albert. Brian Albert already knew his wife and family was at the waterfall, but yet he goes to Hillside instead of being like, no, Higgins, like, no, I'm headed over to Waterfall because that's where my family is, like, come there. They go over and have this private drink where Brian Higgins is eating food, or private drinks, because apparently they have 3 to 4 while they're there, and maybe more. But they don't. What are they meeting about? What's happening here? Why are they just going over to Waterfall right away? So I find that interesting too. Maybe they're just like, yeah, we don't want to deal with the family right now. We've had a long day. I don't know. He says Brian Albert's his good friend. He did know John and Karen for about a year. They met at Hillside, blah, blah, blah. We can go through all that. Open invitation. He got there first. So they were at the waterfall. He sees that Karen does have a drink in a tall glass when she arrives at the waterfall. He does not know whether she actually has another drink while at waterfall. He does text her, which we know that he texts her while she's at the waterfall, like, well. And John was drinking beer. He went over to the Alberts. He thought it was an open invitation. Everybody could go. He got there and he swept the drive. Still problematic to me. Does not make sense that he's sweeping the drive at midnight when he's getting there, at 12:10 when he's getting there, versus if sweeping the drive like if he came back. Like, that makes more sense to me, that he sweeps the drive when he gets back, especially if they move the Ford Edge. So there's no snow on the ground. The snow's not sticking yet. And almost everybody's testified to the fact that there's no snow sticking to the ground at this point. So what the heck is he sweeping? What's he plowing? Like, there's nothing there. Oh yeah, I do have that picture too. Let me grab that real quick. I did save it. Let me download it. I mean, this actually is for later testimony, but it's important for this too, because it gives you a good idea of what it looks like in this area. I just got to download it from Messenger real quick though. So from today's testimony, they have the IT guy, the information tech guy for the city, who was the one that was giving the video footage, the surveillance around town from the library. And so here is at midnight. So you can see how much snow is sticking to the ground, that there's like nothing to plow. I mean, he just goes and scrapes the snow off. I don't know. I mean, I know I haven't driven and lived in where I've had to drive in snow for a while, but I don't see the purpose of having to do that at all. There's nothing on the ground. And so they're getting there about 10 minutes later. Hey, John, thank you. That's very nice of you. Thank you. Welcome to all the new members. And no snow. There's nothing there. I mean, there's very, very tiny bits. That's it. Higgins could have been jealous of John. John was a ladies' man and also loved by all the moms. Yeah, he definitely had all the women looking for him. You don't sweep the drive at midnight. Well, he calls it a sweep, but it's with the plow. There isn't enough snow. With cars, yeah, he did not plow the driveway. He plowed John off the side of the road after Colin and Chloe rendered him unconscious. Hey, Heather. It would be very loud. Not the taillight of an SUV. They added Allie M after the fact to their story to pick up Colin at 12:10 because that does not match Brian and Nicole passing him, leaving, or Higgins there before them. He didn't stay because they only had beer, and he went to the police station lit to move vehicles. That makes no sense. I think he was there to monitor any calls for bodies seen to give the Alberts a heads up. I think it's possible. I do think it's interesting that he testifies multiple times about how the reason he had to switch the vehicle was because he was in his work vehicle and he needed to switch it to a personal vehicle because he knew he was going to be having drinks. So like he cares about like work policy, but doesn't actually care about the law or the safety of other people on the road. Like I would be very interested in knowing the BAC of every one of the people in that fucking house that night. Like this guy's drinking Jameson and ginger ale. He says he has like 3 to 4 of them when he's at Hillside before he even goes to Waterfall, and he knows that he had more when he was there. And then he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna go into the police station. I'm intoxicated. I've been drinking all night, but I do need to move those work vehicles that I'm not allowed to drive if I've been drinking." Does that make any sense? Like I can't drive those around if after I have a drink, so I should just get completely intoxicated and then go and move them. That's essentially his plan. That make sense. They just don't make any sense. Like that's my problem with this whole scenario up until now. Their stories don't make sense. They don't even match each other most of the time. I don't know. Maybe everybody's just so damn concerned about getting to the bar on a Friday night that they don't care about anything else. How is Higgins not in more trouble with his job? They kind of leave that out. I've heard, and I have no proof of that he's actually on disability. I don't know if he actually is or not, but we definitely now know that he is on desk duty, and that's like confirmed. You can write in capital letters, but don't write in capital letters to yell at each other. But you can write in capital letters. I don't care. People say it does something to YouTube, but I don't know. I've never had any issue with it. Okay, so let's see what else is on here. That'll like jog my memory of things that happened so many days ago. They go to look at the military pics, but he says that he never went to the basement. He never looked out front. He never saw John or Karen again. He didn't go upstairs. He doesn't go downstairs. They just literally went to a different room. That's what Caitlin testified to, is that she could, from where she was sitting in the kitchen, she could see them in the other room. But Brian Albert says he took him upstairs. So maybe they're just all so intoxicated, they have no fucking idea what happened themselves that night. Like, as they keep it like, well, Karen was so drunk, she just doesn't remember everything that happened. I'm thinking, maybe all you guys are so fucking drunk, you don't remember what happened. Because nobody even knows whether they went upstairs. Nobody knows whether they went upstairs, downstairs, outside, inside. Nobody knows how many times they looked out the door. No, their math does not math at all. They are very bad at math. Absolutely. I never went out front or looked. Okay, when he left, he lifted the plow. It says about a foot down the street, and then he lifts up the plow, and they kind of go over like how that works. Went to the PD to move the cars around. Then he went home, and he got home around 2. He said that Berkowitz had tried to call him in the morning, but he didn't answer. But when Brian called, he thought something might be wrong. So he does answer, and then he goes to Fairview. He stays there about an hour, and then he went back to the police department. Mind you, he was off that day. He had no reason to be going to the police department. And then he went home. He met with Proctor and Buchnick on February 3rd. He gave them the screenshots of his conversations with Karen and John. So I guess he gives them some conversations with John, but just not all. I never really felt like a solid answer on that with the testimony, but we know that they didn't have that the defense did not originally have the text message where Brian Higgins is texting John while Brian Higgins is at, what do you call it, at the Alberts. All right, give me 1 second. I'm gonna grab a drink. Conscious machine. That's me, not a man. No, just deep voice. Some would say it's raspy. That's what I always used to get. You get the raspy voice. Okay, let me see. He met with a friend that he had worked with to help him download them. He said he deleted nothing off of the phone. He volunteered the info because he wanted to be transparent about the exchanges between him and Karen. They review the text messages. We just did that. They first talk about John's, and then he had gone to John's for a Patriots game on January 16th. Got there when the game was almost over. The Currens were there. They're also on the defense's witness list, so I'll be curious if they end up testifying. They're not on the Commonwealth. They're just on the defenses. He was playing video games with John's nephew, and the next day they end up talking like, why did you have to bring out that Hennessy? And he doesn't remember playing video games. Doesn't remember if he broke his John's nephew's video game, if he threw a controller. Now, let's talk about this. So now he doesn't remember the night before, but yet he drove home. I just want to make sure that everybody's very clear on that. He doesn't remember anything that happened, but he did drive home. This is a law enforcement agent. I'd be curious why nobody asked him what car he was driving the night that he went over there for the game. John's dad is also on the defense witness list, yeah. They go over the text messages. Already did that. They text about being hot. The feeling is mutual. This is so dumb. The kiss. Text with Karen from 12th to the 29th. Flirting. And that's to go over all the same shit. Uncomfortable, weird vibe. There was no kissing, nothing intimate when she came over. Text her when they're at the waterfall unwell. We already went over that. Fairview drove away that night past the flagpole. Okay. He parked the Jeep. He parked the Jeep. Parked the Jeep at the mailbox. Once again, there's only 3 people that are testifying to that. Everybody else on the outside is saying, no, there was nothing there. There's no Jeep there. There's no, your Jeep was not parked there. I don't know why they keep, I don't know. I mean, his Jeep is obviously at the house. So is where the Jeep parked just intentionally to just show that people are lying? Because no matter where it's parked, we still know that he leaves going the way of where John's body would have been laying had it been there when he left. You know what I mean? So I don't know if it actually matters where his Jeep is parked, except for just to show that they're not telling the truth. Hey, Dean. Hey, Breeze. I believe, in my opinion, the prosecutor needs battery barred for malicious prosecution. I don't know how they took this case to trial, but like I said, we're not done yet. Okay, don't call Sleuthy a fool, because she will end up blocking you. And I will be okay with it. She blocks you when you're on the channel. It's going to block you from the channel. Just FYI. She is a wrench. Sleuthy, you do what you got to do. He claims to be leaving at 12:45, 1 o'clock, but everyone else says closer to 1:30. That's also a good point, Susan. He does. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay, so very quick, direct, but then, of course, nothing on. The defense is not going to let this go. And like I said, this does end up very much dragging out, in my opinion, because Alan Jackson is trying to get him to specific answers. And I don't mean like to answer just the way he wants him to, but to like lead him down a path of questioning that would ultimately give that answer. But Brian Higgins, like I said, he's not new to this. He knows exactly how to work this system. This is how it goes. So they talk about that he brought an attorney with him, and that he met an attorney before testifying and at break. Lolly he only met with Lolly one time, doesn't know if anyone took notes. He gave Tully a piece of mail he had received. Does anybody know what that is? Does anybody know about this piece of mail? I was very curious about it when they were testifying to it. I was like, why is he giving a piece of mail to Tully that he'd received? Was it like a threat or something? Or was it somebody saying... I'm wondering about that. He worked for the Fugitive Task Force. He had an office in Canton. He had key card access because Berkowitz was his friend. Berkowitz is the ex-chief of police. He'd had an office there for about 4 years. He's still employed with the ATF. But he has been taken out of field duty. There's a lot of questions here that they're not allowed to talk about, and I think that has to have something to do with whatever the medical records that came in before Higgins' testimony last week. I think that has a lot to do with some of these questions. So, like, either he got hurt. There's something with mental. I don't want to say mental illness, but like mental health. Or there's some type of potential rehab situation. Like, those are the only things I could conjure up in my mind that would fit this scenario of him being supposedly on disability, and the fact that he has been taken out of the field, and the judge won't let him talk about it, which would be more of a HIPAA. It'd be a Higgins. So stupid. He went to the funeral on the 28th. He drove home with Kevin and Brian Albert and Eddie Hernandez. He has a lot of connections to the Canton Police Department. At the speech he gives for Kenny Berkowitz, he says, if you want to hide a body, Kenny Berkowitz is your man. He's known Brian Albert for about 15 years, personally and professionally. He's also friends with Kevin Albert. They start talking about this fight that Eddie Hernandez got into with Brian Albert before, and that ends up getting objected to and sustained. So we don't get to hear any more about this, but apparently Brian Albert and this Eddie Hernandez, who both drove home together with Brian Higgins and Kevin Albert, have come to fisticuffs before. But he's like, well, so that gets sustained. So he's like, well, Brian Albert has a reputation, and that Berkowitz was actually afraid of Brian Albert, also objected to and sustained. So I'm like, but oh, DB, I think it's Brady List. Him lying in an interview with a local agency would create an issue to where the ATF would not want him in the field. They put him on admin duty. The only thing is that there was 5 pages of medical information about Brian Higgins that was brought in like the day before he was set to testify. So that's the only reason. It could be both. Maybe he has both things, because she does say, Judge Bev says, there's a multitude of reasons that I want to make sure we get Higgins' testimony done. And I thought, okay, maybe because he can't sit there that long. There's a multitude of reasons. One, Alan Jackson's not going to be there, but there's got to be more when it comes to him. So maybe it's both. It doesn't get brought up, but I don't think it had to be brought up. I think it was purely for whatever they were not allowed to bring up. Because anytime they start going into anything like that, she's like, no, we talked about this. And there is a rehab. It's not what was it called? in Sharon, Mass, where they talk about that they had this meeting. It's not an actual rehab facility, but it is like a wellness. It's like a wellness center, I think is what it was called when I looked it up. Yeah, I just think it was like a, hey, like he can't, like more like a, he can't sit for more than 5 hours. He can't stand for more than 3 hours. Like a disability paper almost. That's kind of what I got from that being only 5 pages. That's why I thought that. Or it's mental health. Oh no, I know what you mean. Well, you're not talking to me anyway, but I've had to change my daughter's number, and I didn't even have to call anyone. Just did it on AT&T website. Could be a PTSD. The only other thing I was thinking about this meeting in Sharon was if it was at a like off the books place. I know that like Sleuthy said above like a Fed building, but I was thinking like a, because he did a lot of undercover stuff. So if it was an undercover place in Sharon. But yeah, I don't think he was supposed to, because he gets reprimanded for bringing up the fact that he's out of the field, and Brian Higgins' face is just like you weren't supposed to say that. Well, anyway, we don't actually know, so that was, I'm just literally just sharing with you guys all my speculations on like all the things that went through my brain when that came up, because I was like, ooh. He's supposed to be testifying to the fact that he drove by twice. So he plowed one way and then he plowed back. And on the trip back, he saw the Ford Edge parked in front of the house. Yeah, that's kind of weird, right? No idea, but we know that like 3 or 4 people in the Albert family own Ford Edges. Colin had one, Kevin has one, Brian has one, and I think somebody else has one, but I don't remember. Or he was just at a cop's house who lives in Sharon and they didn't want to give up where he was. Yeah, possible. All right, let's go back. So Berkowitz was afraid of Brian Albert, so that gets sustained. I thought that was interesting. I've heard that Berkowitz is sick, so I don't know if he's testifying or not. He had 3 to 4 drinks at the hillside. He's not sure what Albert was drinking. He thinks he probably had more. And then there's kind of like a little quirk in here because he's like, that wasn't a question, and Jackson's like, everything I say is a question, and then Bev's like, yeah, but that wasn't. He went to John's on the 16th. The hot, passionate kiss or a peck. He said it's a figure of speech. There was flirtatious texts, which I don't even think were very flirtatious. The substance was the 23rd. Like, yes, that was the end of it. He gets ghosted. Nothing more intimate between the two. She expressed her feelings about her relationship with John. Said she was concerned about the Aruba girl. He wanted clarity on why she reached out, because he was attracted to her and didn't want to commit to whether he had a romantic interest, but he was texting her that he wanted clarity. Like, he wanted clarity like immediately. And I get he's a cop, so he's like sus. Like, what the hell's going on here? You're like dating my friend. Why are you messaging me? Like, what are you trying to get me in the middle of? Or what are you trying to get me caught doing? Like, what are you doing here? I get that he's sus of the situation, but it's also very weird that he overly wanted clarity on like what she wanted from him. I don't know. I just, it kind of creeps me out. Like, well, what are you texting me for? Like, why she's just not allowed to just text you? The next time he saw her was at the waterfall. He talked to a supervisor that Karen had kissed him. I thought that was weird. Why is he telling his supervisor about this weird kiss? He says he never talked to Brian Albert because he's a private guy. He was at the hillside for his first drink at 8 p.m. It went to the waterfall after the hillside. Didn't know John was going to be there, because they're like, you went there because you knew he was going to be there. You knew that Karen was going to be there. And he's like, I didn't know they were going to be there. Didn't know they were going to show up. Everybody was in good spirits. Like everybody else said, the band was playing. No one seemed intoxicated. He said Karen didn't greet him. This is another interesting thing. Karen essentially ignored him all night. He says he would not categorize it as being ignored, that she was making her rounds, like talking to everybody, and Jackson's like, except for you. She wasn't talking to you. He's like, well, I wouldn't think like she was ignoring me. That's not how I took it. Well, then why does he text her, well, like, well, you're not going to say anything to me? You know what I mean? Like, that's really what that is. So he knows he's being ignored. He knows that she's purposely not talking to him. And so he texts her about it. That was exactly what I got from it. But he's like, yeah, I wouldn't take it like she was ignoring me. She was just, doing her thing. I'm like, He says there was an open invitation to anybody at the bar to go to Fairview, so he did text John to see if he was coming, but yet he did not text Karen then. He parked by the mailbox. It was about 6 feet wide, or his plow is about 6 feet wide, and it's not curved unless he uses the hydraulic system to do it. And then they go talking about that. He wasn't going to stay there long because he doesn't drink beer, and he never went upstairs. So the home gym was in the basement. He had been down there when he was at the house for the twins' graduation party, which is weird because Brian Albert actually says he doesn't remember if he ever went in the house, and if he did, it was just to use the bathroom. He testified before that a tall, dark-haired male might have entered the house on the 29th. He thought it might have been Julie Nagel's brother, but it was very briefly. He wasn't really paying attention. A lot of people have thought that this is John. I think it might be Colin. I think he might be remembering Colin being there. That's my thought. But a lot of people think it might be that he's talking about that John did come in the house and that he just barely remembers it. Yeah, Ryan Nagel's like 5'8". Yeah, it's definitely not him. But Colin is like 6'1", and then John was at 6'2". Susie Q says they are for rehab. The only reason I don't know if it's for rehab is somebody else who was local made a comment when I was talking about it in my chat, and they were like, no, he's been seen out at the bar drinking. Well, according to Karen, she took him to that door in particular because it didn't have a camera. And that's how she was telling him, like, I know where all the cameras are, so I know what would catch us and wasn't. Right? Like, oh, maybe I kind of remember somebody coming in. But how would he not know if it was John? Not everyone that goes to rehab for drugs knows they shouldn't drink. That's true. That is a true statement. Maybe it's just therapy. How tall is Higgins? I actually don't know that one. He seemed about the same height as Brian Albert. Susan, I haven't heard that. If they did say it in this chat, I missed it. I understood why Karen reached out to BH. She felt alone. She felt John kissed someone else and apparently needed attention. Been there, done that. I also think that she makes the comments a lot in the messages. Like, I just thought you and I were more alike. They were about the same age, from the same area. Neither were actually married, and neither of them had kids. So I think she was just trying to see, like, I think that you and I could be more on the same page. Obviously, there were some struggles with the fact that there's two essentially, almost teenage kids in this house that are not her boyfriends and are not hers. And teenage kids are interesting when they are yours. So I don't know. I went back and forth on that whole thing about her commentary about the kids, because I was just like, sometimes, like, I'm like, God, I hate to say it like this, but sometimes I'm like, God, I just want to be alone too. Like, I don't necessarily always want to be around my kids, and they're my favorite people in the whole world. So, like, if somebody was to look back at a time where I was like, oh, they're so frustrating, or anything I may say in a point like that, like, does that automatically mean like I don't like my kids or I don't want to be around them? Because if you take that one moment in time and make it everything, it just would not represent my overall feelings in my life. You know what I mean? Not to get too deep into the whole thing, but that's kind of where I'm at with it. Alone time is nice. So I'm like, I don't know. I could see, like, I would be when I was, let me just say this. So before I was married with children, I dated a couple of men who had children of their own, and I didn't like it. And I knew that the person I ended up with was not going to have kids. And it's not because there was anything wrong with their kids. They were fine. They were fine. The kids were fine. I just knew that that situation was not something I was going to be able to stay in long term. The good Nunya, hi. I'm malicious intent. What's up, Snappy Dragon? Look at you guys. I felt very conflicted listening to his testimony on Friday. Seeing those texts helped me gain a different perspective of Karen, although not leaping to alleged murder, but definitely different. I think that she was just trying to figure out if there was a potential for a different life for her. You know, she didn't necessarily want kids. She wanted to be more, you know, single, maybe married, and go on all these vacations. Because remember, she talks about what a great vacation planner she is. Some things said in private are never meant for public ears. John, that's perfect. Because sometimes that's exactly what you're doing, is you're just venting. They had what they seemed like a rocky relationship. John had a ton of female friends. Doesn't seem like Karen had many friends at all. I agree with that too. It doesn't seem like she had many friends. And she was really trying to fit in with his life. Trying to fit in around the kids. I mean, we haven't got to that yet, but the kids talk about, like, they referred to them as a family. I got the impression that Karen was exasperated at caring more for the kids than John did. She ended up taking his responsibility so he could drink. I don't even know if it's necessarily so he could drink. I think it was almost, she's essentially telling Brian, like, that John bit off more than he could chew. You know what I mean? Like, that his life doesn't really necessarily just fit two kids into it, because he's a cop and he's doing all these other things, and the kids are into all these sports and they're doing all this stuff, and she probably doesn't want all these other women coming over and driving, you know, the kids around, because she's like, who the hell are you? Like, get out of here. When I get frustrated with Bubby, I need to walk away. If I feel myself getting short, I make sure that's what I do, because my hormones or bad mood, whatever it is, doesn't need to fall on him. I agree with you. Yeah, but then, you know, but if you express that to, like, one of your friends and then something in life happens, it's like all of a sudden you just don't like them. Like that. Yeah, see, ATS, you get it too. Yeah, it's just not, that's not true. This true crime genre is horrible with analyzing parents in hindsight. Everyone thinks they're a parenting expert in hindsight. Right. That's what I could only imagine if somebody was like, oh my gosh, let's go back and listen to all the things that Teresa's ever said or written in a text, or It would be, I can imagine, because there's not all the times that I'm like, oh my gosh, my kids are so fantastic and I love them so much. Like, normally you're sharing those types of things because you're trying to vent and get your frustrations out. Most people don't always share all the good stuff, you know? Hey, Percocet, I don't get the vibe that she hates kids or doesn't like kids. She seemed conflicted. I'm really close to the one girl, which is also, I'm going to bring that up too when we talk about the kids testifying today, because going into this whole thing, it was always my perception, at least, that she favored John's niece over John's nephew. And like that seemed to be more of the conflict that her and John had, because remember, he's like, you know, she's taking her to Dunkin' Donuts before school and she's going to be spoiled. But now the niece testifies today and says that she actually thought that Karen liked the brother better, the nephew better, and that she was closer to John. I think the Aruba trip left a bad taste in her mouth. I was curious about this, Jay. I was wondering, is this the first quote unquote family vacation they had gone on? Because John's drunk on New Year's Eve and now she's left to celebrate with the kids because he's drunk and passed out and she thinks he made out with somebody. Hi, post-punk mama. Oh, thank you. It's like I barely follow this case. Just come for the giggles sometimes. What's up, Greenlee? If any parent hasn't said at least once, if not multiple times during their parenthood, that the kids are driving them crazy or down and out liars. True. Only because it's a trial against her for John, Karen's friends aren't being called as witnesses. But wouldn't they be called as character witnesses by the defense? To show, like, this is what she told us. This is, I mean, they're calling all these people to essentially assassinate her entire character by saying she doesn't like the kids. Her and John fought all the time. You know, she has a bad temper. Like, on the defense side, they'd want to call her friends and be like, yeah, she would vent to us, and this is what she'd say about how much she loved John and how it was just hard because she didn't really know what she was getting into. And I'm totally making that up. I have no idea what she said, but I'm just saying, like, you'd think they'd bring those people forward. My son was so mean as a teenager. It was like having a tiger in his room. Just open the door and throw food at Oh, shit, that's funny. That's probably not funny, but it's funny to me. Piggybacking on her not having friends, she would have likely become friends with Jen McCabe or any of those other catty women. It's clear Karen isn't anything like them. Like I said, I think that she really wanted to fit into his life, which means to me that I think she really wanted it to work. Susan says, I don't like any of my kids, just ask him. And Brian Higgins had been married to somebody prior who had a kid. John says, I can tell you firsthand, I fostered my nephew, and it turned out to be the biggest nightmare ever. He was troubled, and he did more than I could ever provide with my career. Aww. That's tough. That's tough. I couldn't sacrifice my career for him at the cost of the rest of my family. She said in text that she was closer to the niece. She was in a sea of elite soccer moms. Oh, God, no. It's like baseball parents. No, thank you. That's me now. I would not want to do it. I'm telling you, if I was not married to my husband, I would be living the single life forever. Yeah. She could have very well thought, I don't think I want to do this the rest of my life. And then she could have taken it back and been like, I think I want to do this because I love him so much. And then tomorrow, I don't want to do this because it's just too much to handle. And I've totally got way behind in chat. That could play why into she doesn't have many friends. Also could play into why she just didn't want to have kids. Is chat being mean to each other? I missed anybody being mean to each other. I thought all those peeps were not here. Basketball coach moms. Colton has his first T-ball game tomorrow. Go have fun. Don't let him cry. When did we come? Hi, Ariel. When did we come to the conclusion that she doesn't have many friends? The fact that she, in all of the testimony and every document we've seen so far, everything that they have done is going and hanging out with him and his friends. We haven't heard anything otherwise. That's where I was at with it. And she's essentially spending so much time at his house that her friends wouldn't even probably be very close. That doesn't mean she didn't have girlfriends she talked to, though. That's what I'm saying. You'd think you'd bring those people on, the ones that she would be venting to get more of her real, friendship sharing things. Yeah, I don't want nothing to do with dating. Never again. Don't like it. Don't want to do it. All right, let's see what else there is. He went back to the PD, move cars, nothing obstructing the view. Okay, so when he leaves, there's nothing obstructing his view of the flagpole. He doesn't see a body in the yard when he's leaving. Not when he went out to his Jeep, not when he turned the lights on. That's literally, if he's parked where he says he was parked, would be facing the flagpole and facing exactly where John was. Doesn't see anything. He moves the 2 cars at the PD. He does some of his admin work. And then, but Jackson's bringing up, like, when you were first talked to about this, you never actually said anything about moving cars. That never came up. You were talking about this admin work. And he's like, well, that is admin work. And he's like, moving 2 cars is admin work. So they go back and forth on that. And then he says he goes home. He has a couple more drinks. It's a couple more drinks while he's just hanging out by himself watching TV. And he potentially falls asleep on the couch. And then Jackson's like, you've never talked about falling asleep on the couch before. This is a kind of in my opinion, to kind of cover this whole butt dial thing, because now the phone isn't on the nightstand if he's not in his bed, but he at some point gets up and goes to his bed because he knows he woke up in bed. And then he talks about that he does not have social media. Well, they should be able to see that if he goes home or not, right? And they don't call him out for not going home. They would be able to locate where these calls were coming in and going out from. I would think. They are able, somehow, some way, even though he gets rid of his phone, they are able to access stuff from his phone. And they talk about that in the redirect today. Lolly brings it up, and he's like, hey, so even though you threw your phone away and even though you destroyed the SIM card, those messages, no, Lolly says it today. He says, like, some of those things that the defense was asking you about, they got without a phone and without a SIM card. Okay, we were talking about that. Asked about phone records regarding calls between Brian Albert and himself. Doesn't remember these calls. They keep going back to the stupid butt dial. So I'll tell you, people are like, you can't butt dial from an iPhone. I'm going to defend against that and say you actually can. I cannot tell you. My mom has an iPhone with a 6-digit passcode, and that woman will butt dial me at least once a day, if not back-to-back times. So I absolutely know it can happen, but the back and forth butt dial does not make sense to me. So there's no, like, so Brian Albert calls him as a quote-unquote butt dial, and then he in turn calls Brian Albert right back as a butt dial? That doesn't make sense. Yeah, my mother's butt loves me more than she does. My mom fucking does it all the time. Probably doesn't lock her phone right, though. She doesn't, DB, at all. No, she doesn't. She's a disaster when it comes to the phone. And she's like, I need a new phone. This one doesn't work. I'm like, hey, this is the third one, Mom. Do you think it's you or do you think it's the phone? Water loving dog. I've mistakenly FaceTime my elderly neighbors from an iPhone. Hopefully not from your butt. Yeah, they answer butt dials, and then they call each other back. So I do believe, yeah, I think we're all in consensus. You absolutely can butt dial somebody, but I don't know if you play like a butt dial back and forth game. I think that's a little bit excessive. Jackson wants to do this 22-second countdown in the court so that people can actually understand how long 22 seconds is and what can actually happen and be said in 22 seconds. So this was an interesting thing to me. So Brian is like arguing back, like, no, it was a butt dial in 22 seconds. It must have been, the phone just rang. It was a missed call because there's no voicemails. Remember, nobody leaves anybody voicemails. And so he's like, no, 22 seconds. Like, there's not much. You can't do much in 22 seconds. Did you guys catch this? I hope that you guys caught this. Higgins has to step out to go talk to his attorney. And they're like, how long do you think it's going to take? Does anybody remember how long they said it was going to take for him to talk to his attorney? I'm going to wait a minute to see if the chat catches up. How long did they say? Yeah, 10 seconds. So it only took him 10 seconds to converse with his attorney, yet this 22-second call, nothing could have happened. You guys are so good. Yeah, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You guys, like, you just did that right there. Like, you just said only 10 seconds is all I need to talk to him. Like, come on. So only 10 seconds to get this whole thing taken care of that we need to talk about before you go back on the stand. But 22 seconds, you couldn't have talked on the phone. It couldn't have been like, hey, I need you to get back over here now. Like, we've got to take care of this. And he's like, all right, I'm on my way. You know what I mean? Like, that's done. That's totally done, doable in 22 seconds. Let's see. He talked to Brian Albert. Drove back to his house. He was in the house with the circle of trust with no law enforcement in there. He ends up calling Berkowitz back. I told him that he had been with John the night before, but he did not tell Berkowitz about the flirting with Karen. He does not tell him that he had texted John to see if he was coming to the Alberts. He does not tell him that he was parked by the mailbox right next to essentially where John was found. Doesn't tell Berkowitz any of that stuff. Just says, yeah, we were out last night. Nobody in law enforcement ever inspects his vehicle. He says the people that were in the house were in shock. They were all just talking together to figure out what happened. Officer came back because Jen had called him. Jen had made a statement at the table that Karen had opined that she hit John, which is interesting because he does not quote the whole infamous I hit him. Just that she might have hit him. Opined means I might have hit him. Good Onion says, Dietz and I tested the 8 seconds and we were surprised at what all could be said. Just breathing into the voice like, he goes back to the Canton Police Department, basically spends the day there. He says, no, he didn't. And then they go back and forth about this key card and what the key card can do. He talks to Brian Albert on the phone while he's there. He's not sure if he talked to Kevin on the phone while he was there, but Kevin was also supposedly there at the police station, so that's also interesting. They review the logs throughout the Canton Police Department from the 29th, and the swipes would all be accurate. Review of the calls while he was at CPD, he replied there was a lot going on, and he knows he talked, but can't remember each call or its contents. Phone records show he was on the phone with Brian and Kevin Albert within minutes of each other. So Jackson's like, are you like getting info and relaying it back? He's like, no, I was not. Bullshit. There's bullshit. What are you doing? You're not working. You're off that day. What are you doing? Why are you calling them? There's no way you're not getting some type of information. I don't know why here. See, this is the kind of stuff that irritates me. We were all still trying to figure out what was going on. A friend of ours had died. And yeah, we were talking about it, but I wasn't trying to influence anybody, and I wasn't trying to influence the investigation. Like I wanted to know what happened to my friend. Like, don't be dumb. You went into work when you didn't actually have to work at a place that you don't technically work at. You just have an office out of, and you're on the phone with these guys within minutes of each other. It just seems like an unnecessary lie again, because there's no way that people are going to think, oh yeah, you guys are spending your whole morning talking about this. We know that you guys have all these weird text messages where you're all texting each other about it for days after. And then, nope, you may have talked to Brian and you may have talked to Kevin on the phone, but it definitely wasn't about that. Definitely wasn't relaying information. You were doing something. Jackson's like, your only role in this whole thing was as a witness, but yet you're consistently talking to everybody involved. They review the times that he was in the Sallyport, which is where Karen's car was, and he's asked about being in there when Berkowitz was. He doesn't remember being in there with him. Of course he doesn't. They never remember this kind of stuff, but yet they remember all the other details. Asked about being in the Sallyport when Karen's car arrived. Asked if he's aware of Berkowitz calling the front desk to have the Sallyport closed. He doesn't remember that. He left the police department around 6. Remind you, he's only at the Alberts for, he says, an hour. And then when he's asked if he's at the CPD all day, he says no. But he leaves there around 6. He's aware there's cameras. He's aware that there's footage missing from the Sallyport, and that gets objected to and sustained. They go over the calls between himself and Berkowitz and himself and Brian Albert regarding the taillight pieces being found. He says he doesn't remember that either. Like, how did you know that the taillight piece was found by Berkowitz? This is a couple days later. How'd you know that? And he's like, I don't know. I don't know how I knew. Somebody told me. Hey, Jen. Yeah, I just mean you're talking about the butt dial still. I thought they invented the lock screen to prevent butt dials. Yeah, it doesn't work. Did I hear Brian Sr. and Jen met at the cemetery? I don't know. Did you? I've not heard that. Does anyone know if Kevin went to the house that night? Well, people have speculated because of the Ford Edge, but nobody knows that for sure. Not that I'm aware of anyway. I mean, he wasn't there for the after party, the after waterfall party. He wasn't even at the waterfall, so. let's see. They talk about meeting with Proctor and Sharon Mass. I put like undercover location, maybe. This one I was kind of starting to try to figure out. We already went through all that though, but it was not at a police station. Is ultimately after a sidebar on this that's all that they can say is it was not at a police station. He doesn't remember if Berkowitz is the one that told him about the tail light, but his testimony at the grand jury said it was possible that he was the one who told Brian Albert. They talk about how he knows how to get rid of information on a phone, get rid of the SIM card, do a factory reset. This all goes back and forth on like just more banter of him trying to evade answering the questions because he knows where it's going. He knows the path that this is headed down, and he doesn't want to commit to the fact that he destroyed his phone. And it's like, I threw it away. So you destroyed it. No, I threw it away. Okay, but it's destroyed then. And he just does not want to get into that. He does not want to go into the fact that he destroyed his phone. It's like, I didn't destroy it, I threw it away. It's like Nicole Albert when she says, when they're like, so you got rid of your dog. She's like, we did not get rid of our dog. We rehomed it. It's like, oh my God. So you got rid of the dog. It's like they have this particular terminology that they're just not going to back away from. And it's like, no, I did not destroy it. Well, you did. You threw it away. It's destroyed when you throw it away. They like to avoid those types of things, though. Yeah, I threw it away, so of course it ended up getting destroyed. I didn't need the phone anymore. It's super weird to just throw your phone away after you upgrade it. Okay, so not to jump ahead anyway, like here, like I always do, but okay, he testifies to the fact that he started thinking about getting a new phone number back in July of 2022 because a person of interest in one of his investigations got his personal cell phone number and had called him. And so he's like, that's when I started thinking about getting rid of the phone number. I don't know if you guys know this now. I think maybe just because of how much we've talked about the IMEIs and the MEIEs, whatever the hell they're called from the Delphi case. Like, he could have literally just taken his phone and gotten a new phone number. But he didn't just do that. He got rid of his phone, changed his phone number, got the new phone with a new carrier, and then the number ends up changed on all the reports to the new phone number. If he just wanted to change his phone number, why didn't he just change his phone number? So, like, the excuse of, yeah, you know, this guy had gotten my phone number and I knew that it was out on public records now, and so I was like, I got to get a new one. No, he just goes, I mean, he's like, I'm going all in. I'm going with a new phone carrier. I'm going with a new phone number and a new phone all at the same time. Now, if he's trading in his phone, right, why doesn't he's just going to destroy the old phone? And then essentially he says he doesn't care about destroying the old phone because he also doesn't transfer any data over. No pictures, no images, no nothing. Transfers nothing over because he's not married and he doesn't have kids, so he has no memories. That was essentially his testimony. And I'm like, when I wasn't married and didn't have kids, I still had memories, but he's like, nope, don't need any of that. My work phone is way more important. So that's all I really needed. Now, not only does he get the new phone, but what he does this on September 29th. Doesn't throw the old phone away yet. But in one of the grand jury testimonies, he says that he had factory reset it. But then he says that he didn't do that during this testimony. He's like, I don't remember doing that. I think I may have said that I possibly could have. Same thing with the SIM card. What I said was I could have possibly cut it up or broke it somehow. Like, I don't know if I did those things, but I could have done that. So you have no memories on the phone, yet you destroy the phone so nobody else can use it. There's nothing important on the phone because your work phone's where all your quote-unquote important stuff is. So what's the purpose of destroying the phone? Why throw it away? what was wrong with the phone? You know what I mean? Like, why did he need to trash it? And why did he need to pull the SIM card out of it and then trash it? And he puts it like in a trash bag. And the phone is, I think they were going this direction with the phone, that the phone was in a different trash bag, but they never really made that very clear to the jury, in my opinion. He tried to do it. Jackson was trying to do it on Friday about, like, you put the phone in one trash can and you put the SIM card in another trash can. And I thought that was interesting, but they didn't finish that out today with anything that made that clear to the jury, like I said, in my opinion. So, well, isn't that almost the exact same time that Brian Albert decided he needed to upgrade his phone? So he got rid of his phone as well, and then they have this conversation where they got rid of their phones, but then both of them are saying that they don't remember having these conversations with each other about getting rid of the phones. And if my memory serves, I'm thinking it's actually the exact same day. I'm thinking it's September 29th is when he did it. It was the day before this order came. Like, they knew, somebody told them that the defense was asking to have their phones preserved. And they were like, well, we're out of here. We got to get these phones out of here. And then they're like, okay, well, let's come up with reasons why. And it's like, Brian Albert's like, well, my birthday was on the 4th, so I got a new phone. He got a new one on the 22nd. Okay, 9/23 was his order. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I knew it was close. But it's like both of them are the day before their order come, that they actually get the order, or they get the subpoena, the notice of the hearing. Right? The both happened like the day before. He gets his the 23rd and gets a new phone on the 22nd. Higgins gets his on the 30th, gets a new phone on the 29th. I found that interesting. Okay, we just talked about that. We talked about that. So this is when he actually has to go out for that 10 seconds to talk to his attorney. It's because it's a federal offense to use this FBI equipment for personal matters. So he said that his friend didn't actually do it with him or for him. His friend just told him what to do, and that's how he did it. So he's apparently in trouble for that, and that might come to being why there's a federal proffer, because that would be a federal offense using FBI equipment. So I'm thinking that that probably goes together more so than the phone situation, but I don't know. Because at first I thought it was because of the phone, but now I'm thinking it might actually have to do with his equipment, why there's that proffer. So that wraps up Friday, and then we come back this morning. Yannetti's like, I think Yannetti's actually pissed that he even has to do this, because he's just like, I'm going to ask you a series of questions that are literally going to be yes or no. Can you answer yes or no? And Brian Higgins was like, I'll do the best I can. And so he's just like, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? Brian Higgins tries to, I didn't change that. I'll change it. But so provided complete text messages with Karen Reed and just told them, this is why I was confused on this, because he says you just told them that you may have had other text strings with John. Like, he didn't actually turn those over. Yeah, Yannetti was just like, I don't want anything to do with this fucking guy. Like, I didn't want to talk to this guy. I didn't want to question this guy. And now here I am questioning this guy. He said he didn't turn over any messages with anybody else. September 2022, they got the preservation order. And October is when he actually got rid of the phone. He keeps saying, well, the order was denied. The judge denied the order to the preservation order. But how did he know the judge denied it was the problem, because he had not gotten the documentation that the order was actually denied and he would be okay to get rid of his phone. In the pretrial hearing, we were told that it's possibly Morrissey who actually tells him he can get rid of his phone. Morrissey is Lolly's boss. She feels bad that he got in trouble for using the phones because he's not an idiot. He may be like loser qualified in some points in his romantic life, but he's not an idiot. There's no way in the world he didn't just go, hey, here's my phone, take it and download what you want. Instead, He takes the time to go and have his friend teach him how to download specific threads. That to me means you don't want somebody looking at your fucking phone. Otherwise, when you're questioned, just say, here's the phone. Here's what it is. Or you could even be like Jen McCabe was like, hey, can I delete these certain messages with these, these private messages with these other people? Even though none of that would be coming in anyway. They can't just go, here, like, we're going to take your messages with your mom and we're going to bring those into the trial of, Karen Reed killing John O'Keefe. It doesn't work like that. There's no reason for those to come into evidence. So there's something that these people did not want known. And I've still to this point questioned whether it's has to do with Karen Reed and John O'Keefe, or if they were involved in some other really shady shit that they were like, we cannot let people see this stuff. I almost felt bad for Lolly. Yeah, dumbassery abounds in this case. We need a t-shirt that says that. Yannetti had the defense daddy energy this AM. He really did. He was just like, I'm not fucking doing this. Coming in here and asking these questions and we're done. He knew that was going to be a problem, but he did it anyway. It was so important to him. Yeah, he did not care. He did it anyway. So he's like, yeah, I got a new phone, and look, but I factory reset my old phone, just like Brian Albert factory reset his old phone. Jen says, Sleuthy, you're my favorite. Sleuthy, I don't know if you ever go through the comments on videos that when you come on the channel, but man, people just fucking love you. They're just like, Sleuthy's amazing. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm chopped liver. Sleuthy's great. Thanks. But I don't know if you ever do, but man, people love you, Sleuthy. FYI, I love you, but people just do. You get a lot of love in the comment section. If you ever have time, go check. So May of 2022, which is the grand jury for Karen Reed, the state grand jury, doesn't recall saying that he factory reset his phone, says he never said that. So he's like showing him, here's your testimony. This is what you said. And he's like, yeah, no, I didn't say that. He's like adamantly saying that he didn't factory reset his phone and he didn't say that he did. Doesn't know if he destroyed the SIM card or cut it up or broke it. June of 2023, now we're going into the federal grand jury. Yannetti says, I made sure that someone couldn't put in their phone. Now, I don't remember what the context of that was and why I wrote it that way, but it must have been important to me when I did it. And this was only this morning. If somebody remembers why I thought that was important, tell me. Tell me why I thought that was important. Oh, John, thank you. I was proud of Yannetti, though. Everyone was super hard to hear or just awful to listen to. I don't know why I thought that was, whatever that was, the context of that was important when I wrote it, and sometimes I really need to make notes for myself. He throws the SIM in the trash bag, and phone is in the trash bag, and then Higgins is like, yeah, with other trash. God. He did not transfer data to the new phone with the new phone number, so he got rid of all of his videos, pictures, and any other text messages. We kind of already went over that because he didn't have any, he has no friends, he has no family, he has no life, he has no memories, he has no kids. So redirect, this is kind of all over the place. And he says January 29th, he had the plow on the ground, only drove maybe a foot with it on the ground, and the Jeep never had anything red on the plow. Lolly's asking that specifically because of the taillights. Like, was there anything that would have broken that would have had red plastic pieces? So that's where that one's going. Let me see if any of you guys remembered why I wrote that. Put the SIM card into their phone. Oh, yeah. So they couldn't put it in their phone. That's why he says he destroyed the SIM card. Thank you, Water Loving Dog. See, I knew you knew what I meant. No way. No way, Susan. You have the same note? That's what it was. That's why it was important, because he testified in the federal grand jury and said that he destroyed the SIM card to make sure that nobody else could put it in their phone. That's what he testified to. Yep, that was it. Okay, let's see. He said Karen initiated the text exchange. Talked about the Aruba trip. They talked about it via text and during her visit to his house. They talked about the kiss via text and during her visit to his house. He kind of goes over like the ghosting of 2020 on the 20th, 21st, and 22nd, and tries to make a little comeback. Like, well, there's other days that you guys don't talk too. you guys don't talk on these other days. And it's like, yeah, she doesn't want to talk to you. That's exactly it. Like, she leaves you hanging every time. Says he didn't tell anybody about these text messages. He was kind of embarrassed and he didn't think they put him in a very good light. He said the text came out of left field and it was hard to believe that she was texting him these things. He went back to the Canton Police Department because of the impending weather. He had to move the cars. He says he did not speak to Brian Albert at 2:22. Does not remember receiving or making a call at that time. Well, he doesn't remember playing video games with John's nephew either. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. Just, side note. They talk about the key card access and the Sally Port had to swipe to come in and out of it. Lolly hands him 167 pages of over 4,000 entries. I was going to go back and listen, but maybe somebody here caught it and I just didn't. What were the dates of the 167 pages? Was it just the 29th? Or is there something, was there a date range given for these? Because I'm like 18 entries on this 4,000. If that's in a day, that's a lot for somebody who's not supposed to be at work. So, I mean, if it's like over, the whole weekend or the whole week, I was curious about the date range on this. Like, would it actually be impactful or not? Because I could give a shit that there's 4,000 entries. I care about how many times he went there and during what time frame he went in. He didn't get the subpoena until September 30th regarding the preservation hearing. Like I said, that was the day after. Again, just like Brian Albert. Wasn't familiar with how the preservation hearings or appeals are, so he didn't know that he had to wait 30 days to, not get rid of his phone in case of an appeal. It says in July 2022, this is when that person calls his phone. He already told you this. He also says that he doesn't have trash pickup where he lives, so he had to throw his trash away somewhere else. I thought that was the weirdest shit, and I was hoping that maybe somebody local would tell me if that's actually true. Like, do people actually not have trash pickup in specific areas? Like in Canton? Or where he lived at in Massachusetts? I know that, out in the BFE, sometimes you have to take your trash into the dump yourself, but that's most of the time in very small outside places, or they have a burn pit for trash. I didn't think that would be the case in Massachusetts, but I'm not from there, so I believe those are all from the 29th, but the list includes all key swipes for the Canton PD on that date. Right, so still 18 key swipes then, if that's true. That's what I was thinking too. But if that's true, that's a lot for a day you're not even supposed to be there. Mickey Cohen says, did he know the exact time Karen Reed came over? I came into testimony when Higgins said 8:23. When she came over to his house? Is that what you mean? What time she came to his house? I don't remember if he actually testified to that, and I didn't write the time down if he did say it. But there's places to bring trash even when there's no pickup. Why did he bring it to the military base? Nikki, if he said what time Karen came to his place, I did not write it down, so I don't remember. Maybe somebody in chat does, though. I've lived in a more rural area before without city trash, and you had to call a private company, and you get a small dumpster kind of thingy. Cape Cod has trash pickup. I'm up there every summer. His area, Barnstable, isn't far on to the Cape at all. So would it have trash pickup? It's funny that she cussed Higgins out when and she also when she cussed him out for beeping at her when she was doing the weed whacking. It's also interesting she refers to John as her husband. My husband's a Boston cop. You don't want to do this. You don't want anything to do with me. He lives in Sandwich. Yeah, Sandwich. So let me see. He's divorced, no kids, no memories. He did not see John on the side of the road, and if he had, he would have stopped and done something because he's dedicated his life to being a first responder, essentially with the firefighting and the ATF and all the things he's done. On recross, Yannetti comes back up and he's like, July 2022 was to change your number, but not your phone. Did you change your phone number then, though? And he's like, no, I didn't. I didn't change my phone number then. I did everything essentially at the end of September. He's embarrassed about Karen's messages. He keeps to himself, yet told his boss about this kiss. He doesn't recall if he actually ever told anybody about the text messages or his boss about the text messages. In regards to only keeping text with Karen, are you familiar with the term consciousness of guilt? This was a very slam dunky Yannetti line right here. I could probably pull it up because it was actually good. He's going over all these text messages, and this once again made me go back to, did he actually not turn over the text with John? Hold on. I'm going to see if I can just grab it really quick, because this is also when, in this redirect, is when Lolly is telling him, like the defense showed you messages that had to do with your phone after it was gone. Let me see if I can just find it real quick.
In another proceeding on June 1st, correct, of 2023?
The SIM card that you're talking about, do you have any specific memory of doing anything with that SIM card?
No, and that's how I testified in that other hearing, that to the extent of what I would have done is I would have cut it up or broke it. And the concern would be that to my understanding, that's not holding any photos, that's not holding videos, that's not holding my contacts, it's holding phone information itself.
And as far as photos or videos or what, if anything,
I don't know if it's right here or not.
did you even have one?
I didn't have much, in the sense that I'm divorced, I don't have kids, typical memories that somebody would have had on their phone that they wanted to preserve. They were more like the text messages with the defendant, where it would be a drink glass at a bar, food, something along those lines. I had more of a connection to my work phone and more of a value to my work phone than I did my personal phone.
Now, as far as that military base down the Cape, how often, let me ask you this, when you lived at the residence in Barnstable County, what would you do with your trash now?
Well, if I was going through and I had trash or some recycling, and I was either getting gas on the base or hitting the duty free, I would occasionally toss a bag of trash in one of the dumpsters there. Or if I forgot, I would throw it out when I got back to my other property. And at the time, at one point, I was living in Canton, and I had the house there, and then I sold it, and then I had the in-law I was renting, so I had other options to throw things away.
Do you have trash pickup at your residence in Barnstable?
No.
So if you were to throw away anything, any sort of trash, it would have to be either at the base or at one of your other homes.
It would be somewhere else.
And so with reference to the phone and the SIM card, if you even did you drive specifically to the base to throw your phone away, or were you throwing it away with other trash?
It was just with other trash.
You were shown some call logs or some toll records or something to that effect last Friday with respect to calls that you had made or received around January 29, 2022. Was that correct?
Yes.
And was that anything that you had specifically preserved and given to the troopers, or that was something that someone was able to obtain even without your phone or without your SIM card, correct?
That's correct.
I approach this to retrieve now.
Yes.
What did he say toll? What did he say?
Preserved and given to the troopers. If you even did you drive specifically to the base to throw your phone away, or were you throwing it away with other trash?
It was just with other trash.
You were shown some call logs or some toll records or something to that effect last Friday.
Some call logs or some toll records?
With respect to calls that you had made or received around January 29th, 2022. Is that correct?
Yes.
And was that anything that you had specifically preserved and given to the troopers, or that was something that someone was able to obtain even without your phone or without your SIM card, correct?
That's correct.
I approach this to retrieve now.
Yes.
See, so they did. They got he was a vet. He was a Marine. That's why they went and look at pictures. Him and Brian Albert look at pictures of Brian Albert's son, who's in the Marines. So whatever happened, they were able to, the defense was able to, or somebody, the FBI, was able to get information off of his phone even after he threw his phone away and or destroyed his SIM card. They already had this info, or they were still able to get it. Okay, let me go back to now. I want to go to when Yannetti comes back up.
Sir, you testified that a prime motivator of you to get rid of your phone was a July 22nd call from a target of an investigation that you were working on.
I never said it was a prime motivator.
Was it a prime motivator?
No, what I testified to was that the phone number was what I was concerned about primarily.
Right.
Didn't have anything to do with the phone.
Oh, you did not change your phone number on July 22nd, correct?
July of 2022? Is that what you mean?
The date that you received a call supposedly from a target of an investigation you were working on was July 22nd of which year?
So it was, I believe it was July 25th of 2022.
July
I was so
25th.
concerned that I reported it to my supervisor.
Right, but you did not change your phone number after that for quite a while, correct?
I believe it was September.
Okay. So for those months, you kept the same phone number and kept the same phone, correct?
I did.
And September happened to be the month that you received the preservation order from this court, correct?
September 22, yes.
Right. Now, with regard to the text exchanges that you had with Karen Reed, you testified that you were embarrassed about them.
I wasn't proud of them.
I think your word was embarrassed, correct?
I can agree to that. That's fair.
Well, you already testified to that, right?
I believe that might have
5 minutes ago.
been a word I used, yes.
And you also explained that you would keep things like that to yourself, correct?
That could be something, yes.
However, you would also agree with me that while they were going on, you told your boss about that text exchange, correct?
Well, I told her about the kiss.
Do you deny telling your boss about the texting that you were doing with Karen Reed?
I don't know if I specifically recall that, no.
But you don't deny it, sir, correct?
It's possible that I told her about that. I'm not going to deny it.
All right. And in any case, those text exchanges were preserved. You preserved those before disposing of your phone, correct?
Correct.
And with regard to the other text exchanges that you did not preserve with the Alberts, including Brian Albert, are you familiar with the term consciousness of guilt, Mr. Higgins?
The objection.
That was just, he's like, so you didn't save any with anybody else. You didn't save any with Nicole. You didn't save any with Brian Albert. You didn't save any of these other ones. And then he's like, are you familiar with the term consciousness of guilt? And that was, and then Lolly's like, objection. No, can't have that.
Yes.
You see his face though? He's just like, I know what you're implying.
One more thing. With regard to the date that you changed phone numbers on your phone, you would agree with me that was September 29th of 2022?
When I actually changed the phone number?
That's what I just asked.
Yeah, yes, I also got a new phone, yes.
Okay. September 29th of 2022, you changed your phone number and got a new phone. And then September 30th, the next day, you were served with the preservation order, correct?
I got the preservation order on the 30th. That's correct.
Okay.
Nothing further. The day before, you were given the court, well, it's a court subpoena to not destroy your phone and to preserve any data that was on your phone. And you happened to do it the day before, just like Brian Albert did. Got rid of his the day before. I don't know. Okay, so then after he's done, Lolly calls the freaking kids. So disappointed, and I'm even more disappointed after we learned somewhat of their testimony. So their testimony was not allowed to be audio or video, so we didn't get to see it. So I went through Twitter and tried to find, there was like 3 people who were in the courtroom who were, they weren't even allowed to tweet about it while it happened. So they had to take notes and then tweet about it after. So I went through and grabbed a few notes from the people who were tweeting. I have no idea the accuracy. They all kind of sounded the same, so I'm kind of going with that. You guys know how I feel about not having direct access, so you gotta we have to trust the word of somebody else at this point, and that's really all we've got. So, and I did go to Twitters from, I would say, both sides of, pro prosecutor, pro defense, to try to be fair, because I know how that goes. So first up was the John's nephew, who said that Lolly asked about his favorite sport, his favorite subject in school. He says that Karen took care of them when John wasn't there sometimes, and that Karen and John's relationship sometimes was rough and sometimes it was good. There was more yelling towards the end of their relationship. He said, but when things were good, like he said that the four of them were like a family. They were happy together and more they were family oriented. He didn't use the word oriented. I just threw that in there. So Karen was nice most of the time. When asked if there were not nice times, there was an objection and they ended up in a sidebar. So no idea what ended up with that, but he does come back and they say there's a few times that he'd gotten in trouble by Karen for like not eating all of his food or taking too long to eat his food. And that she would say stuff about like how she had to put up with his attitude. He doesn't remember if Karen had access to the computer in the office. And this is important because the theory was that she didn't have the Ring access on her phone, but that she could access John's computer in his office, and that she's the one who went and deleted all of the Ring camera footage from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. Well, he says he doesn't remember if Karen had access to this computer. Apparently, he says that the argument that happened in Aruba was nothing crazy. This kind of leads me back to my thought on Karen was pissed because she thought she saw him making out with somebody else. He's completely wasted. He ends up passing out, and then she's left to celebrate the New Year's with the kids. And whether that be in the hotel room or the timeshare room, or whether that be out at the pool with these other people that she doesn't really know and had just met the day before. Some she just met that day, and now one she just accused of making out with him. I would be pissed. I would not be a very happy person. And I'm gonna see if I can say this quietly. There was 1 year where I had to do all the building of all the Christmas stuff, and let me just tell you, that was not a fun Christmas Eve. So, yeah, I get this. I feel this deeply, and it's never happened again. I can tell you that. He said that he saw Karen that morning. Remember, this is another weird thing, is that Lolly and the witnesses have tried to really say that when Karen was at the house that morning, like she just went upstairs, got her stuff, and then she left, and she didn't say anything to anybody, even when they were telling the kids what happened to John. Well, according to John's nephew, that she was there and she was crying and she seemed really sad. I don't remember if it was him or if it was his niece, but one of them testified that she was sitting at the table. So that is not the same as went upstairs, got all of her stuff, and bounced. Like they tried to say, like she just came in like cold and just took her things and left. Like they're saying that she was there and she was upset. Apparently he starts, Lolly's asking him something about Karen's phone and whether it connects to the center console or not. I don't know where that was going, and I don't know where it ever even ended up. Like I never found anybody who said anything about it. Like I said, I'm taking all of this from people who were in the courtroom, and this is their commentary on what happened. Yannetti for Cross comes up and just says, have you ever seen John lay a hand on Karen? And he says, no. Have you ever seen Karen lay a hand on John? And he says, no. And then Yannetti just says, I'm sorry that you were made to come here today. And then he went and sat down. And that was it. Then we have John's niece, who's older. She's older than her younger brother, obviously. And so same question, like, what's your favorite sport? What's your favorite subject? Talk about that she met Karen in 2020. She had a relationship with Karen. Her relationship with Karen was kind of dependent on the day, and that Karen was closer to her brother. But this is why we talked about this earlier in the live when I was jumping ahead. This is just so interesting to me because everything that is perceived from up until this point was that Karen was actually closer to her. So I don't know if this is like a teenage girl thing or if this is like just, because sometimes it's like my daughter will tell you she's not my favorite, yet I spend more time with her than I spend with anybody else because she's my only girl. Not that she's my favorite, but I do because we have, we're the girls, we'd go shopping and we do stuff the boys don't want to do with us. So I don't know. It's kind of, it was that piqued my interest a little bit. She said that John and Karen's relationship was good at the beginning, but at the end there was a lot of arguing and toxicity. But that was an interesting word. She's not that young anymore, so maybe it is something that she's, more aware of. Hey, Laundered Amber, every day I'm more convinced Lolly is a secret agent man for the defense. Secret agent man. Otherwise, I have to pull my hair out trying to understand why this case is being charged. I've wondered that, but then I'm like, why would he wouldn't do this to the kids though, then, right? I would hope not. It's like cooking Thanksgiving dinner only for everyone to eat, then leave their dirty dishes on the table when you clean. It's maddening, right? Doesn't mean I don't love them, but it sure as hell pisses me off. I'd be pretty annoyed celebrating New Year's while the person I'm on vacay with is off doing whatever. Yeah, yeah. Even if they were my own kids, I'd still be pissed, Yannetti wasn't happy with Lolly putting the kids on the stand. He said it when leaving court. Oh, did he? I'm gonna go see I wonder if I can find that. If anybody has it and wants to send it to me or drop it in the chat, do that. Not this chat, in the criminality chat if you're in there. If somebody wants to find where Yannetti says that, I'd love to hear that. I didn't get to hear them leaving court today. I normally try to go find that, but I think I was kind of bored by the end of the day. I was already tired, and I was like, I needed a little bit more oomph to keep me going today. But Karen and the kids did not have logins for the office computer. She said that John had asked Karen and the kids if they wanted access to the ring stuff, and they all said no. She said that Karen would defend her brother more than she would defend her, and she was closer to John. John would walk away from arguments with Karen, and she would follow him and keep yelling. I just thought, like, this is like essentially like they are married almost. Like, that's kind of how I felt about it. I was like, yeah, I know not every relationship is like that, but I could absolutely see it. Said Karen and John argued in front of her when they were in Aruba. During one argument, John asked Karen to leave the house and that the relationship had run its course, and he went to his room for 30 minutes, but Karen didn't leave. And as somebody who's been with my husband now over 17 years, I can tell you there's been times where I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'm fucking out of here. And obviously, I'm still here. So this is like, once again, a moment in time, and it's really hard to say that this is how it is. And maybe things had gotten really bad in that last month because of the Aruba incident. I don't know. But I know that they supposedly they were talking about the Aruba incident that morning. When Karen came back to the house on the 29th with Jen and Carrie, Karen was like upset and was like, maybe I hit him. Maybe a snowplow hit him. Did I hit him? This comes, I think, to also that she was kind of, well, excuse you, doggy. She was obviously all over the place and had no idea what was going on. And I don't mean this mean, but I think this also comes to not being a mom. And said that Jen was in there and Jen was calm and was telling her that John is at somebody's house. And to me, like, when I was listening to this or reading this, I was thinking, this is kind of like a mom versus a not a mom almost. Like, you don't really understand the impact that things are having on your children at 13. And maybe that's just my own interpretation of it. Well, obviously it is, but that's just how I felt. I was like, Karen's like losing her shit, and her main focus is John, not the kids. And then Jen, who is a mom, even though I think that she's kind of, not nice all the time. I think that just comes more to that. That's where I was at with it. She does seem to have her hand in a lot of stuff. When you're a mom, you kind of think differently. Like, I think about the things I'm saying in front of my kids and like, should I have said that? Or I immediately will regret it and go, shit, I should not have said that. Had a brain tumor. If that article is correct, that would explain difficulty with mood regulation. I didn't hear that. I know that she had MS and that she'd had a couple surgeries, and I don't know exactly what the surgeries were, but and I don't want to say the wrong thing. If Karen had left when John asked, John O'Keefe would be alive. Well, that's an interesting argument, I guess. I mean, I don't know if I would go that far because I don't think one immediately affects the other. I think they're too far apart to have a statistic correlation. That's my thought. It's not like it was the fight that day and he's telling her to leave, and then she stays and they go out and they're like making out and cuddly and stuff. Okay, they were trying to figure out what the mass was. They said it at her arraignment. Thank you, Sleuthy. Sounds to me like needs the last word always. Yeah, I know that one. Hey, Bridgie, makes no sense. Yeah, she has MS colitis status post colectomy. Yes, I wouldn't have been able to say that. The children wanted to testify. This is what the children told their friends. Do we know that to be true? And also, I mean, my children want to eat like 7 candy bars in a day, but I know that that's not good for them, so I don't let them because they're kids. So I'm not sure that whether even it is true, I'm not sure that I care. I think that there's a long-term trauma that comes along with something like this, and I don't know if I would want my 16, 13-year-old involved in doing that and having to testify against somebody that did take care of them and that they considered family. I don't know. I don't think I'd do it. So I think I don't even know if I care if it's true at this point. I don't think it's okay. Well, but they don't see, that's a problem for me. That's a problem for me. That conversation is being had. That conversation should not even be being had with them. They should, I mean, it can be like, this is what's happening right now. This is what they think. This is what they're going to try to prove. This has not been proven. This has not been proven. And I think that doing that is wrong. Yeah, that's a problem for me. If the children blame Karen, that's a problem for me. The children don't have the answer. So whoever they blame is based on the people around them. And I do not agree with that. Especially when this isn't done. And I don't want to teach my children that it's okay to just go around blaming people for murder or any crimes that they're not convicted of. Maybe that's just the law enforcement side of my life, but that's a problem for me. No one should be doing that. And as I said, that's my personal opinion. You guys can agree or disagree with it. I'll tell you right now, I do not agree with that. I don't care how old they are. I mean, unless I'm 70 and they're 40, like that's the only time we're having like adult conversations. I'm not telling my 13-year-old that this person did anything and having them have to live with that. And how do they ever get rid of that? Yeah, I don't like that. Lolly's asking her if Karen had a backup camera in the car. Also weird. And then she said that Karen seemed like she was on meds. She wouldn't sit still, and she was like almost shaking at 5:30 when she came back on the 29th. She said Jen was calm. So once again, here's hysterical Karen, and people can argue whether she's hysterical because she's worried about him or she's hysterical because she thought that that's your children. No, that should be any child. We don't want to traumatize our children in our world. They're the people who have to take over for us when we're no longer here. If anybody's okay with traumatizing children, I think I'm going to have a problem with that. And they should not, they've dealt with enough. And they're not my kids, but I'll tell you right now, I will go to bat for anybody and any child that does not need to deal with grown-up situations when they are not grown-ups. And that is exactly what I tell my children all the time. Like, you're 13. Like, how long this is what I told my daughter. This is the conversation I literally had with her, was how long do you think somebody lives? And she said until like they're 85 or whatever number she said at the time. It was in the 80s. And I was like, okay, and how much of that 80 some years are they kids? And she was like, well, until they're 18, then they're technically an adult. And I was like, but how much of it is it? How much are you actually like a child? Like, where you can go and do things as a kid, and it's just like you do whatever you want almost, essentially, because you don't have the restrictions of adulthood. And so we were talking like it is until like you're about 13, 14 years old. And then you go through like the changes of life and you think you're an adult when you're not really an adult. But essentially, so 18 years of 85 years, you have the opportunity to be a child. Why would any adult rob a child of that if they have the choice? Obviously, these kids did not have a choice in losing their mom and losing their dad. They've already had to deal with trauma that was not their fault, and it was not anybody's fault. I would never, ever wish to put more trauma, more adult business in the minds of children when they literally have a very short time. Do not speak. Okay. Okay. I'm going to make this one time, and then I'm going to have a mod block you. Don't speak for others. They are traumatized by their uncle's death, and they wanted to testify. You came into my chat speaking for children that you don't know and that aren't your children. And I know they're not your children. So you literally came in here trying to speak on behalf of these children because you think they wanted to testify. That's what you just did. And then you're going to come into my chat and tell me not to speak on behalf of children because I don't think they should be traumatized. But yet you come in here and try to tell me that it's okay to traumatize these children by putting them through this. How about you don't speak on behalf of people that you don't have a fucking say-so over? And how about you don't come to where my opinion actually fucking matters because it's my channel, and if I don't think kids should be traumatized, I'm going to fucking say it. You don't know them, but you're speaking for them. This whole conversation started because you came in here trying to tell me what the children wanted. And I don't give a shit what the children want. Like I said, my kids will eat 7 fucking candy bars in a day. Guess what? I'm the fucking adult, and I will tell them no. Because I'm the grown-up, not them. They may think they know what's best for them, but it's my responsibility to make sure that they're okay. And anybody that thinks like you do is the problem with why our children are the way they are now. Because you don't want them to be kids. You want them to deal with trauma. I don't care who the fuck you are. I make sure that person is blocked from my channel. I don't ever want to see that person's fucking words again here. I literally cover cases where kids are traumatized constantly by adults who should know better. And those adults are you. You are the reason that these children are traumatized out here. So yeah, guess what? I'm going to speak on behalf of whoever the fuck I want to because it's my fucking channel. Anyway, once again, I don't agree with the fact that these kids were put on the stand. I thought if he was going to do it, that he literally was going to do it because they had something to offer. And now listening to what they had to say, I absolutely disagree with it. And I don't give a shit who here thinks that they wanted to do it. They're not adults and they don't have that choice. So that's where I'm at with it. Anyway, back to Cross. So Yannetti comes back up and he says, like, these comments about that when Karen came back about her hitting John and the plow driver and all of this stuff that John's niece never actually told anybody up until now. She never mentioned it to the DA when she got interviewed in February of 2022. And then he asked her how much communication she's had with Jen McCabe. And apparently, in the last few weeks, it's been a lot. We don't know how that's worded, but what we do know is that either he's asking it and she's agreeing to it, or he asks her and she says, yeah, I've talked to her a lot in the last few weeks. No matter what, we got fucking Jen McCabe still all up in the business of shit that she doesn't have any business being a part of. So that's that. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. If I apologize. Like if you guys don't agree with that, I don't. That just fucking pisses me off. I'm sorry. I don't mean, and I try not to get mad, and I try to be nice to everybody, and everybody have their opinion. But man, how are you gonna go around telling me not to speak on behalf of children as you come into my chat and tell me what the children say as you're speaking on behalf of children? Now I'll stand up, and I don't like that shit, and that's where I'm gonna leave that conversation because I don't even want to. It's so weird that the person who's on trial here is named Karen when we have so many fucking Karens that cover and follow this case. So I can't stand that. Yeah, they're like crime Karens. Like, God, those are the people that just drive me fucking insane. They're fucking crime Karens. God. Is that Jen McCabe? Is that her alias? Is that another one in the T? Open the sunroof. Let the cool breeze flow through your hair. I have a sunroof. You leave me alone, Scotty Skulls. Yeah, teens at that age want to please. I'm sure they feel pressured to testify and want to please these adults. And they also feel like they're being told that she did this. And I'm not even saying that she didn't do it, because if anybody knows anything about me following this case or the Delphi case, I am completely undecided. I have no idea whether she did this or not. But obviously they're being told that she is responsible. So even if they're like, we want to testify against her to get justice for our uncle. Well, kid, you don't know what you don't know. And there's no way that they've sat down with these children and proven to them that Karen did this, because I'm telling you right now, the Commonwealth can't even prove it in the 4 weeks of trial we've already had. I don't like that. I feel like they're pawns, and I don't like that. All right, I think we're going to go through these pretty quick because most of the stuff that these people had to say was really about themselves. And hold on, let me go back up. She feared them having to testify. I wish it could have been different, but the kids have not one time since testifying ever talked about trauma testifying. I don't know what that means, trauma testifying. Unfortunately, people don't have choices. Like the kids, they didn't have a choice, like they were made to testify. Is that what you mean? And is she, hold on, maybe you said something else, because I was off. I was not reading chat, you guys. I'm so sorry. So now I think I might be lost in that conversation. As in she, do you mean grandma, or do you mean like Karen? Or personally, I don't think them being put on the stand is the worst thing. I think it's the manipulation they have been under the last few years leading up to testifying. That's problematic too. For me, it's just like they've lost everybody. And like whether they think Karen did it or not, like these kids still lost her too. She was a part of their life for 2 years, taking care of them and doing things with them. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. I was like, okay, if you're going to do this, you better have something. Oh, I got you. Okay, that's why I said I think I because I wasn't paying attention, Rebecca. I apologize. So I missed the beginning of what you were saying. She didn't want my kids testifying. I got you. It was my mom fearing her own trauma. Well, that's why I'm like, if you're gonna do it, they better have something to bring to the table. If you're gonna put them through this, I think they better have something to bring to the table. I mean, like if they witnessed a murder, I could understand that they come and testify. I get that. I get that there's not a lot of choices in that type of matter, or in domestic violence. I get that there's not a lot of choices in the matter. They have to come and testify about what one parent did to the other parent in front of them. And that sucks. It does. I understand it, but I don't. This to me isn't that. This goes back to they weren't there that night. They weren't at the bar. They weren't at at Fairview. I just don't know. I don't know what they bring to the table, and so to put them through that, I struggle with that. That's where my struggle is. Conspiracy theories here. If you mean defense theories, I cover both sides of the theories. I don't have my own necessarily. I'm still waiting. So, is it like a conspiracy channel? No, I cover both theories though, if that's what you mean. So, I'm not one-sided. But nothing was said to help, so they never should have been called. That's kind of where I'm at. Yeah. I think we can all agree with that. I think that we all understand that. All right, so let's just go through. Like I said, most of these guys that testified this afternoon, I just wrote down some highlights that I thought were actually the important parts of what they were saying. They spend 10 minutes just having to go through their CV, and I get it. They have to do that. It's part of it's just part of testifying from any type of professional standpoint. Like, where do you work? How long have you worked there? What do you do? You know what I mean? Like, they have to go through all of it. So it is what it is. I didn't write all that crap down. It is what it is. This is the emergency medicine doctor. They're going over John O'Keefe's chart. They talk about that he was unresponsive with a breathing tube. Essentially, we've kind of gone back and forth on whether John was actually alive or not alive. And this kind of gives us where they were at with it. Nobody does the whole thing like I think, where it's like, you're not dead until you're warm and dead. Nobody said that. But they do talk about that they were trying to bring up his body temperature. He had an 80.1 rectal temp. Like, that's like crazy to me. Like, but they did have breath sounds bilaterally while they were doing CPR. So they were going to try. They definitely were. They were going to try to save him. They weren't confirming yet that he had passed. He does go into some comments though about like things that he was checking, and his concern was that they may actually be able to save him, but that he ultimately would have been brain dead. So that's kind of what he's talking about. And then he ends up pronouncing him dead at 7:50 a.m., which we knew that. He noticed that there was a laceration above his right eye, and he noticed that there was abrasions on his right forearm. When asked to clarify, he says there was like scratches. So there's been like lives done on whether these are lacerations, abrasions, and like what they actually mean, and people have referred to them as different things. So it's like the more clinical side of it. He ends up being the doctor who's in charge of Karen Reed. From listening to his testimony, it doesn't seem like he really was kind of in her care. Like, he wasn't really taking care of her. He's like, the nurse practitioner was taking care of her, and then he was like signing off on the information. That's where it was at. Abrasions. I can hear that same protective mama bear kind of emotion Tiva's given. Oh. Want me to give your inner Philly going? Don't get her Philly going. That was after the EMTs had tried warming him. I know. It's just heartbreaking. Many questions. My kids saw fighting in my marriage, but they did not see the makeup sex. Plain and simple. Kind of why we limit fighting in front of them. It's very true. It's so true. Travis is the better Kelsey brother. Fight me. Oh, shit. There's a million people testifying the kids were not needs. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Did it add anything? No, it did not. I'm just checking on chat, seeing make sure everybody's okay. Eli's mama. Yeah, a little bit behind, but yeah, that's another thing is, and they're not allowed to ask them that. I don't know why that, like when they did try to ask, it got objected to. I'm like, you guys are all sitting here saying that he's your friend and how much you loved him, but yet you didn't go to his funeral. She is a hospital 0.93. 93. Oh, you see it on here. Where was it at? That is the. What did he say? The You're not okay in chat. It's okay. It's gonna be okay, Sleepy. Yeah, 80.1. None of your business. The prosecution was going for the sympathy card. I think so. I absolutely think so. We're activated? Oh, shit. I didn't mean to activate anybody. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. It's fucking hilarious. I can't even think straight right now. Okay, so not BAC. No, it says the milligrams per deciliter, if I'm saying it right. Milligrams per deciliter. And it was a 93. So then they had to take that and make it to what the other guy will end up testing for. This is the serum. Did he say plasma or whole blood? Hospitals normally do plasma. He said serum. They called it serum. So that's plasma. $93 milliliters per deciliter. Milliliters per deciliter. Thank you. Susan, don't do that. Let me see what else there was. So it doesn't seem like he actually was involved in Karen's treatment at all. It just seems like he was signing off on somebody else's paperwork. So Elizabeth Little does a lot today. And he says that the nurse practitioner is the one that wrote the report. He doesn't actually remember talking to Karen, seeing Karen, treating Karen, nothing. Doesn't remember anything about her. He tries to say that the firefighter did tell him that that the patient had been struck by a vehicle. He believes he put it in his report. And so what they show him his report, and there's nothing in the report. There's nothing in the report that says that anybody told him that the patient may have been struck by a vehicle. So at some point in his testimonies or conversations he's had with people, he came up with that. But that's not what was actually written in a report. Once again, they all say this when they're sitting on the stand, but none of them wrote anything down in any report at all. None of the first responders, the cops, the EMTs, the firefighters, nobody wrote anything down about him being struck by a vehicle, even though the Commonwealth's case like rests on this, I hit him, and that everybody heard it. He did not report any injuries below his head. There was none on his torso, none on his hips, none on his legs, none on his feet, and he did not report any broken bones from the neck down. Now, Lolly comes back up and he says broken bones are not noted because that isn't the focus. The focus is on the resuscitation, which I totally spelled wrong in my speedy haste. And he talks about the head trauma and his exposure to cold. So he says like when he first came in, like they're not looking to get like a full body X-ray. That's not their primary concern. I don't know if these guys are just nervous but they all kind of come off like odd. Then you get the pathologist, Gary Fowler, who comes in. He's the pathologist at Good Samaritan. They talk about all the testing protocols. And he said Karen was tested at 90, came at 93. And then he goes through like the times that everything happened. And so her blood draw was at 9:08. He said like 50 minutes from the time the order was to the time they had the result. And then he's asked about like, does the hospital do any type of legal conversion to the BAC? And he said, no, we don't do that there, but he knows that there are conversion formulas out there. And then Elizabeth Little comes back up again. And she says hospitals are not in the business of doing BAC. And he's like, nope. She says the hospital is not a forensic lab. He's like, nope. Hospital tests the serum and any DH. Certain factors can interfere with alcohol testing when using serum. He says yes. Hospitals are testing more for the presence of alcohol in order to treat patients versus testing for alcohol of impairment, like, you know, for like a BAC would. And on redirect, Lolly just says, didn't see if there was these three major interferences that they would be present, the machine would flag it. And so they wouldn't either use the test or they would notate that these three major interferences or one of these three major interferences were present. And his chart doesn't have that. So that's the end of that. So they're essentially just going to go through with this, that there is what happens at the hospital is not the testing that would be qualified legally to show what her alcohol level was when she was driving 8 hours prior to her getting her blood drawn at the hospital. It's not going to be the same. This is the guy I was talking to you guys about, though, that I thought it came off better than the others. He was easier to listen to and you could understand him more. He was more like a real person versus like all the scientific stuff. So he used to work, he doesn't work there anymore, but he used to work for the Massachusetts State Police doing drugs and alcohol testing. He was assigned to Karen's case. He's done serum conversions. He used her hospital results and the serum result to whole blood results. So he had to convert the hospital results to the whole blood results. And he did this on May 3rd. He said that they do a low, an average, and a high in the conversion because it can be different. And so his low, when he converted it, was 0.078. His his average was 0.081 and his high was 0.083. So saying that at the time her blood was drawn, if you convert the numbers to BAC, she would have been between 0.078 and 0.083. Anybody who doesn't know, legal limit to drive is 0.08. They have him go through all the different types of alcohol, but essentially it comes back to that the BAC, they use ethanol, which is what's in alcohol, also what your body does when it decomposes. So that's a whole nother story. You don't really need to go there. He's asked about a central nervous system depressant and how that would interact. And then they go back to the extrapolation. So this is essentially going back in time. It's a retrograde extrapolation to try to go back to 12:45-ish in the morning when they believe this, where they believe Karen hit John. So they're trying to figure out how drunk she was at the time that he would have been hit by her car. So they go through all that and they talk a lot about like the 12:45 a.m. being her last drink, 9 o.m. being the blood draw. This is essentially what he uses to get that retrograde extrapolation. And so you have to go on a low and a high. His low is that she was a 0.135. Remember, 0.08 is legal to drive, or that's when it's illegal to drive. And then the high would be a 0.29. I mean, that's just crazy. Everybody's different. It's true. But I mean, legally, they have to go with the legal because that's what they're going to end up ruling on for her other charges. So Elizabeth Little does the cross on this one. They talk about you have to make certain assumptions to be able to do this, retrograde extrapolation. And one of the assumptions would be like the time that she took her last drink. If Karen had taken a drink that morning at 5:30 when she goes back to the house and, nobody can seem to find her, right, according to Carrie and Jen, if she's just sitting in the room drinking because she's all upset, none of this matters. It's done. It's out the door. The blood draw would not be from his accredited lab since it was done at the hospital. So the hospital would have to have its own accreditations, but it would not be the same as what his lab would be in testing for BAC. He said whole blood would have been better. the confirmatory tests secure against false positives. Just assuming the accuracy of the hospital draw. Now she's talking about like, hey, so you have to just trust that whatever this 9.3 is, that, you know, the milliliters per deciliter, you'd have to assume that they got it right. You don't know that because you didn't do the actual test. So you'd have to just go, hey, yeah, the hospital knows what they're doing and trust their information. Problematic if they don't know what they're doing. He said that each individual is different. He goes through like a couple different, like, talks about like the journals that they make them read and all the studies that are done and how that's where these conversion formulas actually come from. But he says ultimately each individual is different and that the amount of water in their body is different. So he said, yes, that's true. And people could fall like outside the range on either side of his normal, like his low and his high. He's saying like statistically, people could be over here and could be over here because their body water is different. He said the more valuables that are there, the less the less it would be accurate. He said there's such a large range here because of all the unknowns. The biggest thing she points out though is, hey, if Karen had a drink of alcohol after 12:45 and before 9:08, your entire testing would be inaccurate. And he's like, yeah, it would. It would be totally different. If she had a drink in the middle of the night. So on redirect, Lolly comes back up and he's like, the time of the incident was known as 12:45, and the time the blood draw was known as well as 9:08. And he's like, yes, it was. And then, so Lolly's trying to get him to essentially say, like, the amount of time difference if she drank at 2 o'clock versus 12:45 wouldn't matter. And he's like, well, 1 o'clock would kind of be the same. Like, it's only 15 minutes. It would not create too much of a variable. But 5 a.m., the whole thing would be skewed. Like, if she drank at 5 o'clock in the morning, his test results would mean diddly squat. Because he could only go off of these two known factors, the 12:45 being the last drink and the blood draw being the 9:08. So Elizabeth comes back up and she's like, did you learn the time of her last drink from my client? And he's like, no. And she's like, well, did you learn the time of my client's last drink from the police report? And he's like, yeah. Well, they've already proven that the police reports aren't accurate because according to every fucking witness that testified about their own police reports, the things that they were telling law enforcement, they're all saying they never said those things. So now, how do you trust the police report to be accurate that she actually took her last drink at 12:45? And that when she came home and she's sitting there calling John 100 times and cussing him out, that she's not sitting there drinking while she's doing it. You know, so that's kind of where that ended up. And let me see what you guys have to say. So Travis, so that's all in, and jury can convict on that alone. Does anyone think jury is just going to ignore all that? Did they show hospital did it wrong? Water and body, major difference between male, female. They did not show that they necessarily did it wrong. I think that's what they're going to do with their expert witnesses during their case in chief. So they just kind of poked holes in the accreditations and the processes and how it's not a forensic lab, and well, they won't have evidence that her last drink was at 12:45. So I mean, that could go either way, right? Higgins went home and drank. Why can't she go home and drink? 12:45 is when she allegedly hit him. I have to give this one to the CW. It's actually a real test. In the forensic testing manual, it's in the Trust Me Bro chapter. She probably drank after. That's what I was thinking. Like, what makes it so she couldn't go home and drink? Lolly's whole case is retrograde extrapolation. So far, like I said, I think today's the first time we're actually seeing his case against Karen Reed. All that we've seen before that was his rebuttal of what he thinks the defense is going to say. Why didn't they extrapolate Higgins, who seemed to have been on a binge since 1999? That guy, yeah, he's kind of a lush with his Jameson. So she was anywhere between sober and dead. Yes, essentially. Essentially. Well, it still would have been illegal to drive. So if the jury goes, okay, no matter what, even on the low end, she's at a 0.13, she's still past the legal limit. And as much as we value our own opinions, we're not the 12 people sitting there that have to make that decision. So if they care about this, then 2 of her charges could end up being guilty. But as Sleuthigusi pointed out, the lab was having issues at the time. Not these labs, or not this lab, not the 9-3 lab, this lab, but I don't even know if it would be the same one. He actually wasn't found until 6 a.m., so take it even another hour, Mama K. And why is the blood still like flowing and fresh? It's kind of a loaded question because nobody can really testify to how much blood there was. Only Carrie Roberts says that she knew there was a wound on the back of his head because she was wrapping the blankets around it. And they went way over the top on the alcohol swabs. Because I think, Jenny, they know what the defense expert's coming in with because they have to have that report. So, I bet Vordaer, they asked if any jurors had been personally affected by a DUI. Oh, probably. I wonder if the jury will remember that the state lab just had a massive testing scandal a few years ago. Al Pig is a vampire. Every single one of those police officers was driving wasted. Yeah. That's why I'm like, I would love to know what their BAC was that night. I'd love to know that Higgins is going into work. Just think about it. If anything was to happen to him while he was in the Canton PD intoxicated, who's liable for that? And here's Michael Trotta. This guy doesn't remember anything about anything. And I don't think that this is an excuse. I actually think this guy, unlike all of the McAlberts who just choose to not remember certain things, I think Michael Trotta just doesn't remember anything. And he's like, I don't even want to be here, Judge. I don't know why I'm here. I don't remember. I just don't know. I don't remember if he said this. I don't remember if he said that. This guy seems like such a genuine, nice guy, though. I was like, this guy's just trying to do his, power and water stuff. He doesn't want to deal with all this other crap. He's like, why am I testifying in a murder trial? Hey, Andrew. They probably asked the jury when they do interviews if they have ever been affected by a drunk driver. Yeah, that's what C-Dub was thinking too. Forgetting everything literally me. I know I literally felt this guy and like, I was like, oh man, I feel you. He's like, I don't know what I told him that time that I talked to him 2 years ago on February. I don't know if I told him the name. I don't know if I could have. I don't know if I did. And then he's like, if I did, like, if I say that I don't remember, what did he say? It was so cute though. And he was like, if I say this, are you going to say this? And I had this guy for Trig 3 in high school in 1983. This guy stole my grandma's curtains. He just seemed like such a nice guy. Said he doesn't know the Alberts, but he was recently at a select board meeting asking the board that Chris Albert is on for money for the DPW. Well, he didn't know him then, at least, right, Fightbot? I mean, I don't know if he did. He just looks so like, I don't want to be here. It's like, Judge, why am I here? So he was contacted by Proctor about the Plow, and we kind of talked about this earlier, so I'm just going to go through it real quick. He was contacted by Proctor about who plowed. He's going over the fact that they have like 29 routes that get plowed, and they have a city employee, and then they have a contract employee, and everybody's assigned, so they have 2 assigned to each route. So out of the 29, they have 2 people assigned to each one of those, one being a city employee and one being a contract employee. Then they go over like what the contract employees have to have and what they have, what to be able to be actually contracted through the city. The biggest part about this was that he did not know if he told Proctor about Lucky being the plow driver. He could not remember whether he told him that Lucky was the plow driver, because the whole thing about this plow driver was that Michael Proctor said nobody plowed the road that night. But then the defense finds out that, yes, Lucky Lawford actually is the one who plowed that night. And so did Proctor know that and not want to tell anybody? Or did Proctor just not follow up? And so a lot of this is kind of getting into that, but he doesn't really remember. He was like a teddy bear had a baby with a bobblehead doll. I love him. I know. I was just like, oh, this poor guy. He looks terrified. He said, if I say how many minutes we talked, are you going to ask me how I know for sure? And why my memory about it is so good? That's what he said. It was so cute. And so he answers the question, and then Yanetti's like, I'm satisfied with your answer. Like, I'm going to accept that answer just fine. He was just so, like, are you going to be mean to me if I say something different? Yeah, leave Grandpa alone. I know. He's like famous now. That's fair. I don't think Chris was on the board until January 20, so maybe he didn't. Yeah. Was it 2022 or 23? I don't think he was a selectman at the time of the incident in January, right? Now you're making me pull out dates from my memory. Here you do it yourself or you get fined. Yeah, he wasn't all worth this. They freaking plow the sidewalks there. Here you do it yourself or you get fined. And they go twice. He gave that vibe on the stand, poor guy. He just wants to earn his pension and live his best life. I know. He's like, stop. I don't want to do this. Okay, Travis says, but their intox manslaughter felony requires reckless conduct to be a felony. If you are intoxicated, kill someone, and a jury says you acted negligently, not recklessly, it's a misdemeanor. Will be interesting to see if one side or the other asks for lesser included for misdemeanor. Well, she has 3 pending charges. So I do think that they could just go with the other 2, the lesser charges, right? And just find her not guilty on the second degree. All the ladies are pining over my grandma's curtains. He's trying to be a good citizen and a public servant, I know. Might have just got on this year, but not in 22. Oh, maybe it was this year? I don't know. I was thinking it was 23. He said when he was on the stand he was new, so maybe it was this year. Oh, Andrew, thank you. Welcome to all the new members. Yay, new members. Oh, Jesus, this is where they went off the rails? Oh, gosh. My town has roughly the same amount of roads, and we have about 1/10 of the staff equipment he has on the road. He does. He goes over all the equipment, like and what the differences is in the equipment. I was like, okay, if that actually comes up, like, and it is important at some point in the future, I'm gonna have to go back and listen because I did not. But what they did do is have him talk about like the heights you would be in each of the vehicles that they use to plow, and so I thought that was kind of, and I was like, okay, that's not information I can retain. So if that ends up being important, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this guy's testimony. So on cross, they talk about that. That's why I said they talk about, he really can't remember whether he told him Lucky's name or not. And they kind of go back and forth about it. Yannetti asked him about Frankenstein because that's one of the nicknames for the plows. And that gets objected to, but he doesn't know the nickname anyway, so it didn't really matter. And he says he does know that it was Brian Lawford, who goes by Lucky, was the one plowing Fairview. So he thinks he may have told Proctor that. But because his memory isn't great, I don't think Yannetti was going to push that too far, because at first I think he was kind of like, ooh, wait a minute. So Proctor did know about Lucky. And then he was kind of like, I don't think this guy's memory is super trustworthy, so I'm going to leave that alone. Then we have this guy. He did. He made me smile too. I liked him. I was like, I like you, Mr. Trotta. You can go be a public servant. So this guy, I don't know why he kind of rubbed me wrong. I was like thinking to myself, has he been questioned by these attorneys and just does not like them? Because he was so anti Yannetti. Like he had like this weird smirk and smile. Yeah, he's definitely an IT guy. But he was just like so kind of, I don't even know the right word. Yeah, Frankenstein was that Plow. Yes. The one that Lucky had. But he just had like such a condescending look at Yannetti, like obviously not. Like obviously I didn't do that. Like of course not. I was just like, does this guy, I'm wondering if they have like a history. Like they don't like each other, or he doesn't like Yannetti. He doesn't have human interaction. He was just like, ooh, yay. As important as Lucky said, when I plow with Frankenstein, I have to be super over the top careful. Correct. They have to have him testify to that, though, so the jury can hear it. In Ohio, our snowplows are named Don't Flurry, Be Happy, and Fast and Furious. This is stupid. I love it. He was just smug. I think that might be the right word. He was. I was like, you are just kind of a prick, aren't you? And that didn't have anything to do with necessarily the trial, because he didn't say anything bad or good or anything. It just, I don't know. He looks like the kind of guy who thinks you're a jackass for not knowing, well, all the parts of a computer. I agree with you. He's like, of course I didn't do that. It's stupid. It's dumb. So he's the information tech guy. He says that Gallagher called him to let him know that MSP would be reaching out for the city video footage. I thought that was interesting, since Gallagher's not supposed to have anything to do with the investigation, why Gallagher was calling him to begin with. That state police ended up contacting him, and they asked for this footage between 12 a.m. and 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. And they asked for the farm, which it starts with a P, and I have it on my map, but I just never remember the name of it. The library, and the town hall. He said all the manufacturers of the cameras are the same, even though the models vary. They're motion recording at most of the locations. They are date and time stamped, which I spelled wrong. Connected, and they're date and time stamped, and they have that time is allotted to them based on the server that they're connected to. So they all have the same input. Most of them have a 30-day recording limit. He turned over the specific time frames requested. He said he watched them to verify that there was a recording on there, but he didn't actually watch the entire video to see what was recorded. They pull up, and I already showed you guys that, but I can pull it up again. I think I still have it. I think I still have it open. They pull up the footage at 12 a.m. and you can kind of see, all they're doing with him. They're not showing him the entire footage because they don't need him for that. What they're doing is using him to get the footage in and saying, this is the footage you downloaded, right? You downloaded it from the beginning or from 12 to 1. This is that footage. So, hey, here it is, right? And so he's like, yeah, that is the footage. And so that just gets it into evidence. Hold on, you guys. I apparently forgot tortillas at the store, so I'm in trouble. Not really. But anyway, so this is essentially what the city of Canton looks like at about midnight on going into the 29th. And that's just a funny picture. I didn't even know that one was on here, but it was a funny picture that somebody posted, I think in a Facebook group or on Twitter. I don't even remember which one it was. It's like, entering Canton, home of the butt dial. I'm like, I just want to get out of this. Why is it not going anywhere? Hold on. Why is it not coming? Why is it not leaving the screen? Come on. There it goes. Okay, bring it back up. I'm using my butt to butt dial it. I could probably get it off the screen if I could butt dial it. All right, here we go. So Yannetti comes up and he's like, so you got this 2 hours of video footage. You gave them raw footage, but you didn't sit down and watch the entire video. He's like, nope, just saw the beginning, saw the end. That was it. So he asked him, did you know whether there was any missing video when you turned it over? He's like, nope, didn't know anything about it. And he asked him, well, you sure didn't cut any of the video yourself, right? You didn't edit it or cut any out. And he's like, nope, I didn't do that. He said the footage only saves for less than 30 days at that particular location. He doesn't remember if when he was turning this over, if he knew yet that Karen had been charged at the time. He does think that he knew that John had passed away, though. He knew the footage was for an investigation having to do with a motor vehicle accident. He had the capability of downloading all the footage if he wanted to, but no one asked him to, so he didn't do it. In April of 2023, he was contacted by Proctor, and he says he doesn't remember this conversation. So once Yannetti finishes going through the conversation, he's like, oh, yeah, but I thought that was Trooper Dunn. But apparently it was actually Proctor. Proctor wanted a second copy to give to the defense, and this guy's like, yeah, no, it's gone. It's done. There is no second copy. I'm like, we didn't download it, so you guys have the only copy of that footage. Which is kind of scary in the fact that if they lost that footage, it's just gone. It just doesn't exist anymore. And like we deal with that in the Delphi case where it's like, oh, oops, shit just got recorded over. We're going to have no idea where it went or what happened to it. And he has no idea how the Massachusetts State Police preserved the footage in order to bring it to trial. This is going to be a thing because the footage from the library is actually missing the exact time that Karen should have been driving by there. And it just happens to not be there. This would go with whether her tail light was actually busted at the time from leaving Fairview going back to John's house. You would be able to see her tail light, and that footage happens to be gone. You fast forwarded. Well, I just summed him up for you, so you're good. The shitty chicken parm. It creates a butt dial situation. They really do. There's a obvious problem with these iPhones that are hanging out in Canton. And that's it. That's where we ended the day. So still not at a point where I have an opinion on whether I think she actually did this or not. The only opinion I really have on this case is that these people just don't typically tell the truth. I don't know why. I don't know what their reasoning for just not coming right out and saying, hey, this is what happened. Obviously, Karen broke into the library and deleted the footage. You're right. It's true. I could see that. Sounds like some of you ladies need some footage downloaded. So many conveniences. Yep. So many coincidences. And butt dials are so 20 years ago. Nancy, you know it. It's taco night every Tuesday. Different kinds of tacos, but it's always tacos. Yannetti? Oh, yeah, that's right. He does. He hands him the CD, and he's like, I've never seen this CD before. He's like, no, not about the CD. Like, I'm not talking about the CD itself. We're talking about what's on the CD. He's like, this isn't my CD. It's not my CD. And it's like, nobody thinks it's your fucking CD, dude. Just chill. They do. They have relationships like teenagers. It's like they haven't grown up. And yet the kids seem to have this designated driver program for each other where they're driving each other home while they're drunk. And yet the parents are like, fuck it, just come with me, get in the car. And the parents are driving. Well, they're not kids. They weren't even kids at the time. They were in their early 20s. But the parents who had been drinking are now driving home the younger folk who had been drinking. And then Matt was the designated driver, but yet he said he was drinking. I don't know, man. Like I said, I would love to see the BAC levels of all the people that were at Fairview that night and just see what it comes up with. He's like, I don't use CDs. I use the flash drive. No, I mean Sarah Levinson and Julie. I can't think of her last name right this second. Nagel. Because Matt and Jen drive them home. A hot dog is just a poorly made taco. Prove me wrong. Oh, God, yeah, it's totally different. There's so much more bread. So much more carbs in a hot dog bun. If I ever get some of my footage deleted, I'd be pissed. My husband and I drove home one time over 20 years ago when neither of us should have, and that was the only time that happened, and we both knew after we got home that it was not a good idea. I definitely had some stupid things I did when I was younger, without a doubt, and I would never do it now. If she was drinking while they couldn't find her, they can't drink her. They can't get her for DUI because she wasn't driving then. Right. I think that's the that was kind of what they were trying to insinuate, was like, yeah, if she drank after that, all your stuff is wrong. Yeah, he did not watch. He said he watched the beginning and the end just to make sure that there was a recording, but that he did not watch the entire thing to see what was on it. So it could have downloaded wrong. It could have downloaded with a glitch. He also says that they're motion activated. So maybe there is no 2 minutes. Maybe however she was driving just didn't activate the camera for whatever reason. He was just so smug. But he had like his what do you call them, Coke bottle glasses. I like this guy. He just looks so scared. He's like a deer in the headlights. So again, we'll go over the schedule, and there's no Karen Reed trial for the rest of the week. They are back in court for a full day on Monday. They are off on Tuesday, back for a full day on Wednesday, a half day on Thursday, and no court on Friday. Well, ironically, the John's Ring camera is deleted from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. So there's nothing of her arriving home either. Nothing of her arriving home with a broken taillight, or arriving to John's house with a broken taillight. Tomorrow at 1 Easter, Bob and Jay are with a guy going over Jen's testimony about her speech and her lying. Yes. So tomorrow I was gonna do open panel with Jen McCabe's testimony, but since they're doing a live during the day, I'm actually going to do Delphi tomorrow night. And then I plan on doing opening statements and Brian Albert and Jen McCabe. I also downloaded Chris, Julie, and Colin. I just thought it would be interesting to do a little throwback and see what was said at the beginning that we didn't really even. I tell you guys, when I take notes, like certain things I don't write down, and then I'm like, crap, I should have wrote that down, because 3 witnesses later it becomes important. And I'm like, shoot, I should have freaking wrote that down, because now I understand why they're asking that question, and sometimes I don't understand it. So I think tomorrow I'm going to do Delphi. And Sleuthie, are you still here? Travis, are you still here? I don't know if you guys are available tomorrow night. You want to do the read through of May 7th? It's not a super long one. It's nothing like the last one we did. So I think we'll do Delphi tomorrow, and then Thursday. Well, I'm just wondering. I don't know if are Bob and Jay planning on doing this every day? Because I'm going to do some during the day, and I hate being on top of them at the same time, or going live at the same time. But I may not have a choice, because some of these are going to be longer. Like the Jen McCabe one's probably going to be pretty long. Did we ever figure out why Gold told Baldwin not to eat? No, I don't know. We don't think we did. So I was just going to see if you were available for the read-through of May 7th tomorrow afternoon, evening, your time. It'd probably be about like 5:15. Well, yeah, but if I want to do both, so I might Thursday, Friday. I'll try not to go over them tomorrow, but Thursday, Friday, I may have to. Okay. I know. I heard it as soon as I said it. Thank you for capturing it for me. Bob's going to Crime Con. Bob and Jay are just tomorrow. Okay, that works, and I won't be on the same time as them. And then I don't know, Travis, if you're still here, if you are available tomorrow night, and you want to do the read through. Yeah, so mine will be at more like 5-ish Eastern, I think. Yeah, 2:15 my time, 5:15. Okay. So there's really only the 3. There's technically other ones, but they only say like 1 or 2 things during the like Baldwin doesn't really talk. There's also Auger who doesn't really talk, and then there's the sergeant, the sheriff, the sergeant that doesn't. They say a few lines, but there's really 3 parts to read. So if you guys are in, the 3 of us can do it tomorrow. Yeah, Bob has to go see that cute grandbaby. His grandbaby, I don't know if you guys saw it. That baby's got tons and tons of hair. So much hair. My babies were bald. His grandbaby is so freaking cute, though. Okay, so we'll plan that. I want to talk about the dash cam and the BAC criminality. When do you want to talk about that, Scotty Skulls? You want to do a live and talk about those? My bows were taped to my head. Aww. Okay, works for you. Good. Your babies had lots of hair. Now my babies were bald for a long time. All right, well, we'll figure it out. Whenever. Okay, sweet. All right, we'll figure it out then. If you want to talk about dash cams and BACs. Maybe we could do that on Thursday. All right, yeah, I want to go back to Delphi for a hot minute. And then, Scotty, let me know if you're available. You want to do, or if you prefer like oh shoot, this weekend I got competition in San Diego. Well, I don't. Kaylee does. We'll figure it out. Okay. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow for Delphi if you guys are following that case. Otherwise, I'll see you Thursday for some more Karen Reed. And we'll figure out the best way to... We'll see how Bob and Jay do tomorrow on how far they get on Jen. And then we'll figure it out from there. All right, I'll see you guys later. Thank you guys once again for being here and hanging out. Thank you for still staying here after I kind of got pissed off for a hot minute there. I really appreciate each and every one of you guys for being here. There's just, I try not to get mad and I try not to let people get under my skin, but that just irked me. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for having my back. Thank you for just supporting me in general. I'll see you guys mañana.
Do you dare to follow me down? Head into the unknown. Down the rabbit hole. Where it stops, no one knows. We're going Do you dare to follow me down? Head into the unknown.